Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus.
Well, Rolf Harris is dead, but Synctank is live. So, welcome to the show. How are you all doing? Oh, and Kent made it. Great.
We're doing better than Rolf.
Back, Kent. What's up? So, I don't think anyone even remembers, it seems like, Rolf Harris, but me. Is that it? Because my dad doesn't like music that much, but he really liked this one song that Rolf Harris did. Because there's a song where he went out on like a stage and it wobbles. So he's like, whoop, 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 as he stands there. And then it's like all of his songs are super racist, right? Because he's like, watch me wallabies feed, tie me kangaroo down sport. It's like all these weird.
Was he English?
I think he's Australian. Was he? Let's find
out.
He's Australian, yeah.
But is he really? Because like, what do we know? I mean, like about
he's knighted. He's probably knighted by.
And fundamentally, he's not Aborigine, right? So he's born in Australia. It looks like he's from Bassendean, Western Australia. All right, I'll give him that. But he died in Berkshire, England. So painted an official portrait of Queen Elizabeth in 2005. He painted an official portrait of the Queen. After the Jimmy Savile sex abuse scandal broke in 2012, Harris was arrested as part of the Operation U Tree. Police.
Did you say Savile?
Yeah, Jimmy Savile was the tip off to him. They're like, well, if Savile's dead, then the whole party's over. I think that's how that went.
Well, in the 80s there was a lot of racism in the UK because when the immigrants first, because they weren't used to having such an influx of immigrants, and so like Eric Clapton, you can find that Eric Clapton recording of him saying some overtly racist things, and then it's no excuse. And I don't know if you go so far to say it was the norm at the time, but it was definitely more common than most people would like to think.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, like, what's his name? I'm sorry, the guy who plays Tennessee in Love Bug, like what's his name?
Yeah, I know.
He used to do like a bunch of really racist stuff. What was his name? Buddy Hackett. Is that right?
Sounds right. Disney Love Bug?
Buddy Hackett would do, like, my grandparents went once to see like a Shriner party or something. They saw Buddy Hackett live, and my grandmother was so repulsed because he was so friggin' completely uncouth and dirty and vulgar, but also he did this, like, he put chopsticks in his mouth and pretended he was Chinese.
Oh yeah, I remember
horrifying,
that. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. It's completely.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you go to a Shriner party, you should kind of expect, especially if it was a while ago, that's the kind of level of humor.
That is, I think,
and sexism too,
Right. Yeah. But the song, I was like, my boomerang won't come back. And he's like, my boomerang won't come back. Right. Like, I waved it around till I was black in the face. Like, he says some things I'm surprised were allowed even at the time, but then the thing is, I think you were looking into this a bit, Thomas, some of his background, right? You were saying.
Yeah, it's a little bit creepy because he's also credited with the first anti-child abuse video made for children in the UK
Always.
ever in history. And while he was shooting that in 1985, he was actually partaking in child abuse at the exact time he was shooting and casting for that video, which is extra creepy.
Yeah, it's like, so his cover was to make the
Look at his hand
video.
right there. Look at that hand. He's already doing the whole glass touching 666. Yeah.
Has anyone here ever seen Stalag 17? The film Stalag 17? Stalag 17 is like my favorite movie of all time. And it was the inspiration for Hogan's Heroes. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because, spoiler alert, but there's a stoolie. And the guy is German, but they dressed him up with phony dog tags, came up with a fake story for the guy, but he's in charge of security. And isn't that so the classic thing where the guy who's put in charge of security is himself the stoolie, so to speak, that phenomenon exists a lot of the time.
And, since we're talking about Australia, I mean, is Rolf Harris like? Does he know?
Not anymore.
Nicole Kidman, yeah.
What's Nicole Kidman's father's name?
Yeah, Anthony. Anthony. Well, he wasn't. Well, he had been accused of. Well, I don't know if he was convicted, but child trafficking. He's associated with the Order of the Nine Angels. That the satanic group.
Yeah.
And, my understanding of him though is that was why Tom Cruise had to get a divorce, was that he was a dissenter of Scientology. So like they have another name for that. What do they call that? When somebody goes against the grain of thank you. Yeah. So and then, but what was crazy is that happened before with Mimi Rogers. So they would play, matchmaker. Scientology would. So he got match made with Mimi Rogers, and then her father ended up going against Scientology, and then they broke him up, and then they hooked him up with Nicole Kidman because he had some kind of vision of him running through a field of flowers with her or whatever. I think I've talked about this before. It's so over the top. And then the same thing happened again. So it's like they put them together and then they break them up. And it's in both cases with Tom Cruise, it was from my understanding, it was because of their fathers,
I mean, I would imagine they might have known each other, but I'm looking for it. I don't find evidence off the top of my head. But I mean, they are Australian. So, I mean, the fact that they were living in the same place and they're both famous, had money, there's no reason it's impossible.
It's very common, too. Like, it reminds me of the Oneida Corporation / Oneida cult. But there's so many other. People's Temple, I think, did the same thing where, like, the community itself would decide who would make good couples. So someone would just kind of, like, raise an idea. Hey, how about me and so-and-so? And then you would wait for that to float around, and they would almost take, like, it to a vote. And then, like, the entire, congregation or whoever was there, they would say, you guys go off and make kids.
Right. And then they have their kind of like their idealism around like, oh, they're one of your parents are one of us, so you should be all good. And then it doesn't always translate that way.
David, what do we were talking about Scientology on Twitter.
Dies at 93, by the way.
What was that conversation that we had? I'm trying to track what we talked about. And basically, I was trying to explain something to you about.
We were talking about Jim Carrey's ex.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, about the suicidal ex. Yeah. So, but I don't know. Yeah, because every time I heard of the reporter Ortega, he. Do you guys know this guy Arnie Lerma?
Yeah.
He wasn't in the sink. He wasn't in Synctank. In the sink kitchen sink. He was in the what's that group that we were in together? It was David.
Secret Sun.
No. It was David McGowan's website, the Lower Canyon group discussion group. So he was there, and then we became friends there.
But Arnie's he's ancient. He did all kinds of stuff on Usenet. He was part of the alt religion Scientology.
He was, yeah.
He run with Mark Bunker?
No. He was dating L. Ron Hubbard's daughter. And then because
wow,
that's
deep.
Because when that came to light, basically they wanted to kill him because he was basically put in the crosshair. They said you cannot date his daughter, so he was basically being kicked out, and he was like one of the major whistleblowers at the time. But I was talking to him up to the point that before he shot himself. My last conversation, it was really creepy because he was talking about he's seeing red eyes out of the bushes. He said something's in the bushes. I gotta go check. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? we were talking about a whole bunch of stuff, and then he kind of approached me. He kind of felt like I was trustworthy, so we just kind of became friends that way. But because I put out a lot of information in that group, and then the next day he shot his wife, nearly killed her, shot her in the face, and then he just turned the gun at himself. Yeah, but he was saying that he was like either hallucinating, he was on drugs or something. I don't know. It was very bizarre.
Targeted or something.
Yeah, because he saw the Mothman or something with the red eyes in the bushes. So yeah, he got released. I don't know. It was very sad, very tragic.
I was looking at a whole thing on baby incubators because one of the things about a lot of like Britain and Australia and America where there are these, it seems like there's these elite that get involved with art and entertainment. And then there's all these orphans and foundlings and kids. And then so why is this? Like, why is this happening? And so part of the deal we know, like I was looking into how the Catholic Church will take unwed mother or somebody who can't take care of their kid, they'll just take their kid. They used to do this for centuries, and they did this in Argentina even in the last 20, 30 years. So there are lots of people that they had parents, but then they were taken. There's also this crazy there's an epidemic of sterility that spikes in the late 17th or early 18th century, and it goes on until the 1890s. And particularly from the 1840s to the 1890s, it's just insane. There's something like 60% of people aren't able to have kids, and like 30% of people are able to have kids. And, we see these stories of these huge birth rates. Like there are certain periods after, the baby booms, right? So after a plague or something like that. But then you've got people that can't take care of the kids. So this is all engineered in order to move people and migrate people around the world while there's this sterility, and trying to figure out where it comes from is really confusing because it could be so many things. It could be maybe just that there was a lot of venereal disease that people weren't checking for. It could be that people got the mumps and they didn't know how to treat it. It could be that people were, but for whatever it is, it wasn't happening before that as commonly. And then all of a sudden it becomes this major spike. And you've got all these testimonies of people who couldn't have kids and what the lives were like of these people, who were unable to have kids. And so they're trying to get more and more people to bring them kids through the foundling trends.
Sounds like we're talking about two different things, though, that you're saying are they connect. Because like my mind immediately goes to like the last scene of Eyes Wide Shut, where you have those two guys that were at Ziegler's party, following the girl in the toy store. And that's the last we see of Helena. And so there's this kind of idea that, because the context, of course, being is that, Kubrick casted like Hollywood's two biggest Scientologists at the time, when the movie came out in 1999. And, his daughter, Vivian Kubrick, had, for all intents and purposes, been kidnapped by Scientology, in the sense that she had to cut off all ties with friends and family, which is actually kind of becoming kind of a popular thing to do among the kind of real, neoliberal scene. Is if somebody's toxic, even if it's a family member, it's okay to cut them off, But so this is also the time in which the timeline of that having happened with Kubrick's daughter, and the way that he chose casting for this movie it seems kind of suggestive. Also, there's a million little things, like it's not a naval officer in the book Dream Story, yet they made him a naval officer in this movie, and it kind of brings up L. Ron Hubbard, at least his fantasy of who he wanted to be,
You know what? I posted this article about it was released in 2019, but it's about the writer of the screenwriter of Eyes Wide Shut.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys read that? I guess you guys didn't.
No, but I'll tell you, if you want to read something pretty far out, read the original screenplays before they edited it down. Of Eyes Wide Shut, because like the dream that she has and the religious elements in it and everything is so freaking far out.
Yeah. Hey, check out, I just dropped in the mailbox. There's this link to the article. But basically, Kubrick was surprised that the writer, what's his name? His name is Freddie, right? Yeah, Freddie. Hold on, I'm loading the article. But yeah, so basically, there's something about because Kubrick asked Frederick Raphael to come up with a not a synopsis, but basically like a fake dossier of FBI dossier on the character, on a Dr. Tom Cruise character, Bill. So when he wrote that, the one with the highlight, Kubrick was shocked. He's like, how did you get this? He was basically questioning, how did you get a hold of this? This is supposed to be top, like undisclosed information. And he's like, what are you talking about? It just came out of my head. I just
that highlight too there, the rich man's Averell Harriman being Skull and Bones family, and the Harriman brothers, who's the ones that put the Bush family on the map.
That's what. Oh, I was having trouble understanding exactly what he meant.
Yeah, Averell Harriman was like one of the OG sort of like military industrial complex barons, if you would.
Wasn't there the thing where it was like the first reporter or journalist or whatever to drop the Epstein story was the same journalist that's in the fake article in Eyes Wide Shut? And it made sense because he, like, for the overdose. So because he was kind of that kind of writer at the time, but still it's kind of weird. Like, yeah. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Who's the do you know the journalist that you were talking about?
I can't remember his name, but I know this checks out. This is the name in the fake article for the overdose. His name is the guy who dropped the Epstein story, I think, for New York Post or whatever.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I have seen. I was gonna say some stuff about AI. Also, there's like new drug power tools. They're in the process of just completely. Everyone who used to go and get a prognosis, it can tell you a prognosis 3 years before cancer could normally be seen. Like they can predict it 3 years ahead of time now.
So is this going to eliminate doctors or what?
I mean, it's everything. Everything is gone. In the next 5 years, how crazy would you be to not use a calculator?
It's funny because this is what like Elizabeth Holmes was promising, but it was snake oil the whole time. If she had just waited it out for like another 3 or 4 years,
let me have 2 babies and then I come up with the patent, okay?
I mean, that's the thing that bums me out because that's literally how every company exists. Like they don't have the tech. They have enough money to fake it. They monopolize the industry and eventually they end up with the magic. That's the only way to do it because you can't have it to start with. It doesn't exist yet. How else are you supposed to create the thing unless you essentially faked it? And that's what she did the whole time. She got all of the right faces around her so that it was capable. And of course, everyone then hearing about her making it, they're going to be competing to try to make it themselves, and LaRoche is going to try to create the same technology. So it's kind of weird because it's the right way to get that made, but then she has to go to jail.
But the future they plotted out is still going to happen. It's basically going to be an AI-powered vending machine at Walgreens or CVS, and you go up and you look at it and you answer some questions, and it just dispenses your pills. Done.
Right. Well,
I just dropped in the chat the link to the image, and it's Larry Salona. I might be pronouncing that wrong, but that's it. So
that's
that's the guy. So he wrote for the New York Post, and so he apparently was the first guy to really drop the Epstein story when it broke. Just interesting correspondence there. Hey, Alex.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, Alex.
Hey, Eddie, how's it look? What you doing?
We're talking about Scientology and Eyes Wide Shut and a bunch of other things.
Don't let me stop
you. I'm still trying to get to the what's that dead woman in Eyes Wide Shut, that red hair?
Mandy.
Mandy, yeah, and
I was friends with her on Facebook for a while. She was a bit more right wing for me to be able to even conversate with. Is really extreme. I can usually deal with people, but she was like, and I think it's because it was 2016 too, so she was just gung ho. But she told me that she is, in fact, that there's no question she was the woman in the mask at the party, because sometimes people question that and they're looking at her tits when she's OD'd, and then they're looking at her tits when she's wearing the mask. And no, she told me that she played both parts. So
It was Kate Blanchett who did the voice of that lady.
Oh, really?
what
but-
did she? Kate Blanchett did overdub for that woman? What are you saying?
Yeah, you didn't know that they brought her in to do the
So
after
that's
Kubrick died in post.
crazy for Tar,
Yeah.
So she's British.
dude. What the hell?
So the one that played Manny is a British. I mean, she
I think she's
No.
American.
no. Well, I'm just kind of fascinated by the number 19 on her at the morgue.
Oh yeah, that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing that we've examined.
Yeah.
Just tying together the 19 thread.
prognosis.
Mhm.
Well, it all ties for me together back to Kubrick's 19th birthday, which is the day that the military-industrial complex was codified in writing via the National Security Act and signed by Harry Truman. And there's lots of other stuff about 19.
That was
but
a
that's
birthday present for Kubrick that they
Pretty
did?
much, yeah.
Like,
And then
birthday,
and
here
then
you
the
go.
state of Israel was founded 42 weeks after that.
Dude, I got so many videos with David Ewing Jr., which is just like all about the number 19. Here's some of my favorites from it. The number 19 is the atomic number of potassium. The 19th prime
K.
number is 67. In Islamic tradition, there are 19 angels that guard hell, and the day of resurrection is said to be heralded by 19 trumpet blasts. The Quran mentions the 19 as a witness to the truth of its message. It's the number. And some Islamic scholars have identified various patterns and structures in the text which are based on multiples of 19. There's like everything's June 19th, right? Like they're 19, 19, 19. The number 19 is associated with various esoteric traditions, Hinduism. Little Book of Coincidences by John Martineau explores the orbital patterns and mathematical relationships of the planets and notes that there are many curious connections between the number 19, such as the fact that the sidereal period of Uranus is 19 times that of Earth, and that the great red spot on Jupiter completes a rotation in approximately 19 years. I mean, it just goes on and on.
19 is the sun in tarot of the major
That's right.
arcana.
And the
and that's-
19-year metonic cycle is like
19
really
holes in
important.
golf. Come on,
Yeah.
19 holes in golf. Scottish,
they-
right?
they-
Anybody?
They play on that in Melancholia. In fact, there's a little joke in the film Melancholia relating to how many holes are in the golf course, and it changes. So they
19th
show you
Amendment.
what it is, and then he says what it is. Keep this other
The
one.
Baha'i faith is based on a numerical system in which number 19 is considered sacred. The Mayan calendar based on 19-year cycles with a 0 for 20. Shakespeare's King Lear is 100 knights, and 19 of them are named. Kiska Stone, an ancient
Ooh.
artifact of Alaska, it makes a mysterious inscription with the number 19. Catch in the Rye, obsessed with 19. Come on, everything,
That's a good
everywhere
one.
you go.
There's also like
Chapter
beyond
37.
just 19, but JFK and the whole story about JFK and his boat that sank in World War II is PT 109.
The human hand has 19 bones.
So you have the metonic cycle on there.
Yeah, that's what we just mentioned.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wait, 19 bones or phalanges? When this, what do you call it? Yeah, no, just trying to figure out. If it's
Here, a woman's menstrual cycle is often referred to a 19-day cycle by some fertility experts. The arcade classic Pac-Man, there are 19 dots in the first level.
That's my favorite one.
Come
so far.
on,
Dude,
yes.
you know that Pac-Man was released the day and year before The Shining, and both
Same
you
days.
know concepts are ghosts and a maze. It's like the basic archetype of The Shining is basically Pac-Man. I love that. If you turn Pac-Man, you get the sun with the outline of the pyramid in front of it. You know.
Pac-Man's super
Pac-Man's
esoteric. I know we've talked about before, but I mean, I think it's interesting. Also, that they are actually not ghosts, right? Like the original version, there are some sort of weird monsters that are wearing like outfits or something like that, but they're like terrifying squid monsters or something that'll get you. And that this is folded over, right? That it's an infinite plane, but if you come left, you come out right. Like the
Mhm.
What does it mean? There are 19 dots. How are there 19 dots on the?
I think it's at the first level, so it gets more complicated as it goes, or something.
Seems like that's not very many dots at all. I've played Pac-Man a lot.
I know,
Yeah.
right? I might want to call bullshit on that. until I get further.
What if it turns out
It's like
all
when they
a
tell you the 42s in The Shining, and they're like, he swings his bat 42 times. It's like, okay,
No,
you
he
gotta
doesn't.
stop him. No, he doesn't. I know. And so I'm like, I
And
gotta
the
go.
guy-
You so maybe
the
take the
guy's-
time to sit and count, and then I'm
No,
just
the
like,
guy's
no.
thing was that he's counting the first time she swings the bat, like before they get onto the stairs.
Mm.
So I had that same complaint for a while. I counted it like 18 times. Like, what? This
You're
isn't
like,
working.
okay, 18 and then 42. Come on, that's great. There's reasons for all of it. What about the metatonic scale?
Yeah, the metonic cycle. It's like
Metonic.
metonic or whatever. It's like when it's how the relates to how the sun and the moon orbit around the Earth, or yeah, however that goes. And when they reach the same place of the sky, it's sort of this joint, it's joint configuration that happens every 19 years. And I think that has a lot to do with why, like I said, the CIA was created on Kubrick's 19th birthday.
Okay, so that's a fun one because the lunar solar calendar metonic cycle, when the sun and the moon, like, so every 19 years you can get back on track basically if you follow.
Yeah. And it's
this
like
is how it's a major celebration for the Muslims and for the Jews and probably for the esoteric eyes wide shut people as well, because why not?
there was a long essay about it on about the Hebrew calendar.
And what's that 19.5? Well, that's not 19, but 19.5 degrees of the
That's a kind of
the intersection.
Babylonian, Hebrew, lunisolar. Is there who else uses this? Is there any? Does China have one? Pre-civilization. Yep, China had a lunar solar calendar as well. Polynesia also had a metonic calendar. That's interesting. It's possible. I'd like to look into that.
You know what? I'm still trying to follow that case with I told you about. We talked about 2 shows ago. I think in Italy, the 11th grandson of the Pope Gregory. The Pope that invented the Gregorian calendar, right?
Right. Who's his 11th grandson again? Is it this guy?
Yeah, and so he died, and his wife, who was a Playboy model from Texas,
right?
His 5th wife. That thing is, she got kicked out of the house. His kids basically trying to, get the lawyers to get her out of the take her out of the will, basically.
Dang.
Inheriting nothing. She's sleeping on the streets and couch surfing right now. So I just find the timing is kind of interesting, with all the
they're still on the kettle the kettle method over there, where the divorced wife can only take what she can fit in a kettle, which is I haven't quite updated it yet.
Yeah, I don't know. Italy has its own set of
They got some crazy rules. It's true. I mean, yeah, but if you married a noble or a royal, you probably are never going to get the rights that came with it. I think is kind of the point, because your kids might, I guess, to an extent, but won't they always be kind of considered less royal because of that? Which is you're less inbred, so there's something wrong with you.
Right. So the blood isn't as blue anymore. It's more of a purple. Is that the idea?
Yeah. This actually gets into some stuff some racy stuff we can talk about later, because I'm the devil.
I just had to say that dude was totally a mushroom. You can't convince me otherwise.
China's about to start extracting uranium from seawater, which sounds kind of cool. What you don't want them to take the uranium out of the seawater? I mean, isn't that kind of environmentally friendly? What do you think they're doing? What is going on here? What's real?
I just can't believe at this point we haven't figured out a way to make seawater drinkable. It seems like it's just is that just a commodity thing? Is that like scarcity equals control in the ultimate sense, or do we really haven't gotten to that point where we're able to?
Haven't there been desalination?
Of course there has, but why isn't that such a that seems like that would just be the direction we got enough water, we're good,
Well, so actually, it's kind of funny. I remember this being
radioactive.
This was a big thing. About someone from South Africa. Please tell me, because I know you guys watch the show, and shout out to you because we love you. That South Africa was working on ceramic saline water filtration systems in 2003 to 7, and then sometime after the crisis, everything went to hell, and there's been droughts, and they shut off the water because they were trying to stop South Africa from having self-sustaining, state-paid access to desalinated water. Whereas I think Indonesia, Fiji, and China all have sets. They have these massive ceramic desalination systems that exist. China, desalination plant. I've seen videos.
They don't want people to be independent. They don't want. They want everybody to rely on the government-run, desalination plants.
Yeah,
China's
push for desalination. They're doing 2.9 million tons, right? In a bid to boost water capacity. So 1.25 million tons per day of new capacity will commission over this period. They're making so much, desalinating so much water. It's impressive. but they control it all, right? And the few countries that have gotten really close to having water independence, I think you remember, was it 2008 was the Bilderberg meeting where they decided Obama was going to be president before Hillary, right? And that was in 2008, was it 2007 or 2008? And then they said that water was going to reach $100 a barrel or hit parity with oil, right? Wasn't that like a Bilderberg?
Was what was said. Yeah, at the time it just sounded like that kind of made me roll my eyes, but I don't know.
Well, actually, Bilderberg just gathered like 3 days ago. They were meeting at in Lisbon.
Well, do you remember that video? There was like a special video that was made by Nestle that had the head of Nestle, and it wasn't for the public. It was just for like him making like private deals or whatever. But he was so matter of fact about just like, people have this assumption that they have just a natural right to water, and he was like, why is that? Like, water is just like anything, it's a product. And whatever.
If you look at Nestle, the Nestle corporation, they basically they own like the California waterways. They don't give a damn about us getting fresh water. Everything has to be bottled basically. And the CEO was the CEO of Nestle.
Not personally, but yeah.
Audacious. Basically, he doesn't care.
Oh, he's awful. Yeah, if you watch that video, it's like as a normal human being, like non-elite, it's just like it's terrifying. Just
that Nestle owns so much of Paraguay is really telling, because it's kind of like, the Nazis were in Tibet. Now you've got the Swiss in Paraguay, and just like the difference between, like, what do the Swiss sell? What's their major water product? Liquid death. Have you seen this? Swiss water is liquid death. This is the product from Switzerland, right? This is the Swiss water. I'm not doing it. I mean, someone bought this for me once, and I was like, no. Like, what? Like, why? Like, why?
Well, the pitch was, from what I've heard, it's because there was too many metalheads getting too drunk at the concerts. So this was a way to like, hey, bro, you can still be a badass and drink water at this concert. So as long as it's called liquid death.
Well, there was a test that was done. They tested all the bottled water throughout India while I was there, and when the results came in of different toxicities and just whatever the problems were, the one that was by far the worst out of all the brands of bottled water was actually Nestle, and Nestle's the biggest. And so it's just like, why is it maybe one, if they were naive or whatever, they would assume that like the biggest one would have the highest standards or higher standards, but in fact they had the lowest standards. And so maybe that's how they became the biggest too. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure they're extracting straight from the Ganges River, right?
Dude, I got so sick.
The dead bodies are floating everywhere.
I was drinking chai like every day in Hardwar for like a couple months before I realized I caught the guy who served me the chai walking from the Ganga. It was right by the Ganga, and he would just put the water from the Ganga to add more, to be able to serve more. Rather than making more, and I got giardia so bad, and I'm pretty sure that's where it came from. It took a while to get rid of that. It was gnarly.
I think we should go to Florida. Old World Florida, Dr. Longo, I did a show with a while ago, and we were talking about, and this is great because Disney's National Geographic even has an article, Florida's radioactive fountain of youth. So there's radium in the springs, and this is where Ponce de Leon was trying to get to. And they're finding, remember, for the last few centuries, rich people from New York and from Toronto would go live in Florida when they retired. And the idea that this would add like 20 years to their lives, right? Because they would be healthier. But it might be kind of connected to the radium. It looks like that might be, so getting your access to that, I'd rather have Florida radiated water than liquid death. I'm pretty sure is the answer.
And also Zephyr Hills, which is a fairly popular drinking water. That's in Florida.
Where's that? We have Zephyr Hills water. Whoa, look at how you spell that. That's crazy. I like
Zephyr.
Yeah, it just feels that's like the dudes who created the Mormon Church when they spell things like that. That's impressive. We go for Bilderberg meeting in Lisbon. Did anyone hear anything about what's been going on so far? I mean, usually we just know they're there, who's who.
Well, do they actually meet at the Bilderberg meeting, the Bilderberg building still, or is that?
No. They're just that's the name of their club now. But they're openly.
I thought it was interesting. The very first name on that list is Stacey Abrams.
Oh, that's adorable.
The,
So it seems
but-
like she's gonna end up being, like what was she, president in Star Trek? I think they're gonna will her into president, or at least something very high up on there. Yeah, Stacey Abrams, Sageworks production. That's the Stacey Abrams of Georgia.
How does she get to have so much fun? She seems like, like you wonder about Bilderberg, and like, what is Bilderberg? If Stacey Abrams is part of it, like, what is Bilderberg really?
It's like Build a Bear but government.
Yeah, like they get them together, they give them like a swag bag, and then they tell them what to say to the world. Like they go report.
What a weird thing though,
Switzerland.
because you got like a guy try.
Stuffing.
I'm sorry.
They don't tell them what to say.
They
They put out the standards for everyone to then follow.
It's
something
like the
nicer.
the Lakeside Talks at Bohemian Grove. I think it's like, here's the things that are happening. Get yourselves ahead of it.
Here are the
Right,
enemies.
but
for the year.
what the hell though? Because like if you people talk about groups, right? So like you talk about like the Trilateral Commission, or just the various groups, and this is
Carlisle,
not this
yeah.
this isn't even really a group per se, because this is just people that have
just really quickly, Suzanne,
influential.
they're different.
Nazi roots, you know that, right? It was founded by the Prince of Holland, Prince Bernard, who was the father of Queen. What's her name? She just stepped down. But
I just wanted to point out to
It was
Suzanne, because Suzanne said Bilderberg and Trilateral the same thing. They're not the same thing, actually. Bilderberg was from the Knights of Nobility, the Black Teutonic Order of the Germans, and that's why Prince Bernhard had a hard time. I mean, they wouldn't allow the Japanese and the East Asians in. So David Rockefeller created the Trilateral Commission as an extension or sort of a sister organization that's not really accepted, but I think it is now because they're the same members a lot of the time. But this was a parallel group that would allow East Asia to be involved, right? So the Bilderberg meeting was not intentioned to include Japan originally.
Right, but it's not really a member group, is my point. And there is crossover, obviously, between the Trilateral Commission and the people who go to the Bilderberg meetings. But people who go to the Bilderberg meetings are just people in influential positions. As far as we know, this isn't like an organization per se. This is people from various organizations that are all colluding, or they're in cahoots.
Well, so originally Prince
there's
Bernhard's plan was to include only the nobility, right? And so then the nobility would be able to make these sort of decisions that were above politics, because the politicians were there to serve the states at that point. And so, this was changing very rapidly because democratization of Europe was happening at the beginning of the 20th century. But he was thinking the way to continue with both is that the state owns the democracy and it guides the democracy. And so that way you have a certain amount of control over your politicians still, which is the tradition, right? Like that if you
right. It depends on how you're defining democracy, because a lot of people, when they think of democracy, they naively just think majority rules. I'm being Captain Obvious here, but the way that the term gets used now is often just the opposite. It's like when people talk about a threat to democracy, sometimes that just involves conversation. Like you shouldn't be having this conversation because it's a threat to, it's like, okay.
A threat to participation.
Andreas, I'm putting, I uploaded this before. I look in the mailbox. This is basically the chart on how all these groups are associated, and then the hierarchy. Basically, these are all beloved. This basically is the whole thing is the round table group. How all these 6 divisions are connected in different geopolitical areas.
And some of these too are just like different like for example, Trilateral Commission is like the Rockefellers Club, and then Club of Rome is like JP Morgan's club, and because like you can't have one dude with a big club and then all the other rich guys, they're like, well, I gotta have a club of 300 or 400 people in a think tank, and it kind of builds on that. And I've
never cared for this chart. I've always felt like this is kind of like an oversimplistic.
I don't feel like they fit here the right way. Like the United Nations isn't like across from the Trilateral Commission. The Club of Rome might be. It's not, but they're not really symmetric that way. Probably. Give me a separate.
If you look at a triangle of power, they have 4 facades. They don't want to tell you who the head of the snake is.
Right.
Yeah, I think it goes along with this idea of influence versus control. Because like the way that I approach a lot of conspiracy theory stuff, which is much different as I did when I was younger, is like I really think that they don't have as much control as people like kind of assume. Like, but influence is a big thing too. So whatever.
Yeah, there's no reason not to go to the Bilderberg Hotel. I feel like that's something we should probably put on our bucket list because it's probably not that busy most of the year at this point. You know, they're like
It wouldn't be
hoping-
the same if you couldn't get woken up by the screams of Alex Jones and a bullhorn, though. I want that to be the morning alarm.
I have that
Was it-
recorded on my phone just for any time, really.
Wasn't your buddy Luke? Didn't he show up like a couple years ago and like
He's
talk
been
to
to
people?
he's been to a few of the Bilderbergs, yeah, and he stood out in front with Alex Jones. He also went to the island, right, Epstein's Island. He was like one of the first people to take a boat there, and much credit for doing that.
Yeah, the first place I heard of Bilderberg that I can remember was in an old documentary during, I believe, during Obama's presidency of Alex Jones, and he was just like in front of the place shouting at people, if I remember right.
Has anyone stormed the ranch yet?
Probably did
The
someone?
Epstein Ranch?
Well, no, actually, no, it's been sold. It was some billionaire just bought it. What's his name?
Oh, really?
Yeah. This little St. James.
Well, that's suspect. Let's look into that guy.
Right?
Yeah. He's very weird.
Deutsche Bank will pay $75 million to Jeffrey Epstein billions. Interesting.
Victims, you mean?
Yeah, they're trying to cover up everything. You know, they're trying to erase every track you can think of. But I posted a video too, basically comparing. What's that temple called? Wait, hold on one second. I'm gonna pull it up. In Syria, basically the design of the Epstein's temple is based on the Phoenician. Phoenician
bathhouse.
Totally.
Yeah, Phoenician bathhouse. Yeah, did you guys see that video?
Yeah. I saw that like in what was that 2016 or whatever. At the same time as I was telling people that there's underground levels to that building, and then it goes way down because I had seen something somewhere that was convincing enough for me to feel confident to say that, and people called me a fucking loon. They were like, he's not a Bond villain, it's not like that. And I'm like, no, it's actually like that. The floor comes out, you go down, there's like all of these levels, and I was like, and then now it's in a Netflix documentary, so I guess that's relatively
crazy,
well known.
That's pretty Bondy.
You know, it's funny because I just subscribed to some channels. There are these people basically trying to break into all kinds of underground bunkers. And there was one video I just posted today. It was like this deep tunnel all the way down, and you have steps all the way down, and it leads to this torture chamber. I was like, there's like blood stains all over the wall, and then they go, and the back door leads to like an underground mall. But you gotta look it up. But
just like that's like
all these kind of crazy
the
locations,
Disneyland, the parking lot for 24-hour fitness by the Disneyland in Anaheim, right? Like you can go underneath there. There's like a connection there too.
Oh yeah.
That's a screen. That's a conspiracy theory that I buy.
No, I just
100
literally used to go. That's
%.
how I used to get to Disney. I
No,
would
no,
go
I
to
believe you.
24-hour fitness
saying-
and park my car because I didn't want to pay to park my car at Disneyland, so I'd go there so often.
Well,
No, I know. I'm just saying that larger the whole theory that of Dumb's deep underground military bases and the fact that
Anaheim?
like there are underground structures below probably every city and the whole country that we aren't aware of. It seems pretty obvious at this point.
There are a lot that we
Yeah.
are like. So you go to these snow cities, and I'm just calling any place that's not California that, but like places
Yeah.
where it gets weather, and they'll have these underground
Man, you got
tunnels.
Tahoe.
Into,
What are you talking about?
I mean like Cleveland or something though, like where like you're minding your own business, and all of a sudden it's fall. Like those places where they have a road
Well,
underground.
the Rock and
for
Roll
Hillary-
Hall of Fame is there, and that's
They have Hillary
probably,
Clinton's tunnel.
you know,
I don't know what they call it, but like I remember when
pyramid on the lake.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
It-
the old
it-
the tech.
I just want to be clear with this one, and since you just mentioned Disney, because when I was doing my orientation, when I worked for the TV show Elena Bavalor, I was going to the employee orientation, so I was in the corporate office in Alameda, and then so they basically got everybody. There were about 100 people who were hired in that week, so we all have to walk through the tunnel. Because that tunnel was infamous for so many years. I was like, that's where they traffic the children. And then so we were taken to that tunnel. So I walked
Johnny
through
Gosh
it, and-
was here on the side.
Help me! There's like blood all over one. But no, I didn't see anything that I that can tell. But they say the purpose of that tunnel was to because they try to keep every production top secret. They don't want any reporters, anybody to see, photograph anything. So that's the best way to transport the documents and
but there are so many tunnels, and when you look into so every year they'll be like, oh, we found a new tunnel where drug cartels were running 100-mile truck tunnel from San Diego to across to Los Angeles, and there's another tunnel there's all these underground tunnels, crazy amounts of tunnels. I remember being in Mexico and this guy's like, what if we got you a car and it was filled with drugs? I'm like, I don't want to deal with that. It's like, no, it'll be waiting for you on the other side of the border already, way up there. We'll just get it to you. I'm like, no. But it's not hard to do because the tunnels are that accessible by the cartels or whomever has been licensed to run and operate these things, right?
Well, it used to be a bigger commercial industry because there was a point in time when one of the biggest selling points of a house was how nice is the bomb shelter, and that lasted up until around the 70s. I think there was a huge company in Vegas, and even right now under Las Vegas on Spencer Street, there's a 20,000 square foot bunker that was converted into a lounge. It was the top of its sort of day in the 70s, but it's got hot tubs on every level. There's even a floor that mimics the outside of a house in a neighborhood with fake trees and fake grass and the fake outside and everything, because people were actually a lot more open to that, and then it just kind of fell off the side of a cliff at a certain point.
Well, they were scared into it. That was one of my favorite Twilight Zone episodes is when that guy had built that underground bunker in his house, and it's his birthday, and everybody's basically talking shit about him being so stupid to spend all this money and to go to all this trouble. And then there's the announcement that there's a nuclear threat, and then everybody ends up tearing at each other and trying to get into his bunker. And then it's and then it turns out, false alarm, everything's cool. And then it's Rod Serling's something along the lines of, which is the real the neighbors, is it the the nice people at the party, or is it the monsters they became, which is important?
It was a great Brendan Fraser movie based on that premise.
Yeah, Blast from the Past is my favorite, one of my favorite movies, honestly. It's great.
Any of you guys know about anything about the Getty Museum in Los Angeles?
I have a friend who is actually a remote viewer who had some thoughts about the Getty Museum.
Yeah, well, what did he see?
Just truck snarls traffic on 405 near Getty Museum. What are you talking about? What was the Getty Museum tunnels? What?
Well,
just underground.
I didn't even know anything about the underground base that it has until Getty. The whole 405 freeway was caught on fire during the 2018 Los Angeles wildfires. It was crazy. The whole Getty Mountain was on fire.
Look at this article. The fact that this is on USA Today, fact check. False claim that thousands of children are being held. Oh, okay, keep going. I'm interested.
And COVID is real. COVID is real.
I always read those. I always do. Most 90% of the time, I'll read the USA Today or Snopes or any of those just to cross reference to see why it is that they're arguing it's true or false. I can't do the genetic fallacy thing where I'm just oh, Snopes said it's bogus, therefore who cares? Because it's Snopes and Snopes is stupid.
Glenn Maxwell and Epstein were never at the Getty Museum recently. That's going to be it's going to be something unconnected. They're
probably, and this might not be the time to go through all of that, but I'm just saying,
no evidence of pages.
It's funny how they phrase the heading, and then later on in the article they'll restate the heading just back at you. I don't know.
Hey, look up the mailbox. I just dropped my photo. This was the only time I went to Getty, and they had the Book of the Beast exhibit.
Book of the Beast Museum Exhibition Pavilion. Wow. So what is that? Is that a griffin or is that a Yale?
Feed you to the beast. Griffin, right? Take you to the under the sub level 72.
I mean, your kids are so safe because you're not just worried, about pickpockets. You're worried about griffins
they didn't select them. They didn't pass the test. I'm all right.
I just watched the movie Lost Highway recently, and remembered that the Lynch casts Balthazar Getty in the role in that film. He is a Getty.
Which film again?
Lost Highway. Which essentially it's a weird story, but that first it's Bill Pullman, and he's kills his wife in a brutal fashion, and then kind of transforms. He dissociates and becomes this other person who is played by Balthazar Getty, who's a kind of the opposite of him. He's like a nice young kid, and so I think I'm just wondering if there's some commentary there about the Gettys and what it's sort of masking.
Since you mentioned David Lynch, Blue Velvet, right? Blue Velvet, the ear, the ear in Blue Velvet. I read somewhere that it was inspired by the Getty, the Getty kidnapping. And Paul Getty, the grandpa, he's like, I'm not gonna pay these ransom, because they were asking for like $22 million, something like that. He said, no, just cut off my when he refused to pay for it, and then all of a sudden there's a box with his grandson's ear in the box. So
that links to Kevin Spacey too, because he was gonna play Getty in his he did. They filmed it with Ridley Scott. The whole movie was done of him playing Getty. And then he got canceled, and the whole thing happened, and they had recast it and refilmed it. No. So that was like his final attempt or whatever. Anyway,
you know the meaning around the ear thing. I just learned this. I went to the Van Gogh exhibit in Amsterdam years ago, and I couldn't remember what it was that they said happened with his ear. And then I watched something, and they were explaining that it had to do with bullfighting. He would attend bullfights regularly, and so he got into that's a good picture. He got into one with this other poet or whatever, this guy, and basically he went home and he cut his own ear off. So it sounded like it was going to be like a duel thing, and I was like, oh, did the other guy cut his ear off? But no. And then he gave it to this woman, but it was symbolic of I forget what they call the person who fights, the bullfighter, how they would cut the ear off the bull and they would toss it into the crowd. And so for him to cut his own ear off and then give it to somebody as a gift was symbolic of like, he's the bull. He's like, I'm a defeated bull or whatever. So maybe there's something there.
And the Spanish would have done that to Dutch, to be honest. I can totally imagine that being like a pastime that would have happened, bullfighting with Dutchmen.
Reservoir Dogs is the other famous ear scene, ear cut off.
Was that Stuck in the Middle with you?
Yeah, with Michael Madsen dancing around and being
the Getty name's interesting to me too, because they're currently in the middle of the largest anti-AI lawsuit. It's at 1.8 trillion with a T. Potentially, that's if they were to recoup.
I heard they were going to go to 3. I thought they were talking about 3 because they're saying there's 1.8 plus there's damages.
What's the difference between 1.5 trillion and 3 trillion? Seriously, once you get to that kind of a scale,
esotericism,
trillion, baby.
I tell you this, because I'm involved with this huge uproar. I mean, we're still in the middle of the writer's strike, and we're gonna director's strike and the actor strike coming up, and I never could believe that Getty will be one of our biggest allies. We're basically looking for all these corporate allies to basically say,
dude, it's just like the Pride movement, right? All of a sudden, everyone's friendly with the banks and Coca-Cola and like every major, we know you guys made Fanta, but you've also kind of like put Kylie Jenner in a video and shaken a hand with that was Pepsi, but whatever, same difference, right? Everyone. They find themselves aligned with these big corporate interests. And I imagine there's just like a group of, corporate guys just laughing, every time one of these happens because they get more on their side.
Yeah. It's just, everybody's hypocrites, really. I mean, I don't know, every time they have some kind of agenda, they're going to side with it. It's
going to be interesting because it's kind of like Eli Whitney's cotton gin, right? So, there's a certain point where if you have slaves and they break your machines, it's like, it's problematic. So there's going to be people that used to love having slaves, but they realize it's better to have trained people because they don't want to break their machines. I think that's kind of what's happening to corporations right now. They're like, we like having slaves. I mean, but at the same time, they're thinking, but these machines, they can't run them very well. And if they're just automated,
they're giving license to people who are like young executives to just like run with what they think is like the cool, like kind of what you did for CNN there, Andreas. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, well, you seem to know what people, what would be good, and then there's this like, whoa, we gave too much advertising power to somebody who just thought they knew what the cool hip thing was.
You just described MK Ultra too. It's the same exact pattern, right?
Right. Well, Frank Zappa talked about it in the music industry, right?
They didn't like it when I brought up Blue Blood Crabs. I think that got too close. I was like, What about so this is kind of we're talking earlier about the epidemic in the 18th century of infertility, but China right now, you've seen that they're giving everyone what's it called? Birth fertility treatment in order to boost their fertility rates, because so many people have extremely low sperm counts, extremely low egg counts, or they have thin egg walls. There's all kinds of weird things because of environmental.
That should have started with underwear, right?
But it's not working because
the
next thing is they're trying to propagandize the hell out of them, because a lot of these Chinese kids are vowing to not have children. It's like 30% of Chinese people are like, all right, if I had to. Most people are like 70% like never,
And I tell you this, in China, birthing women, they're way outnumbered by men. I mean, the one-child policy basically, the effect lingers on. I mean, of course, the one-child policy, those born in the 70s, they're now parents now, but it's scarce. All these Chinese young men, they're scrambling to look for wives in Russia or somewhere crazy. They have to.
But look at
there's not enough women in China.
Even now, there are tons of women because they had made advantages to give women in the last 20 years. And so now there's all these 18-year-old women. And here's what they say. Talk to any young woman in urban China about the prospects of having children, and chances are not keen. It costs too much to give kids a decent life. The stuff they teach at school is propaganda. So I'd want to send them to an international school abroad. I can't afford that, said Kong Kong.
You know what? Did you know China is now 20% unemployed? 20% unemployment, because all the sanction that's been going on with the war going on with Russia, and so basically they're having some serious employment problems. I posted some videos because I'm following this Chinese blogger, and he's posted all these videos of all these young guys just all over the streets, sleeping on the streets. I've never seen anything like it.
I don't know if I can find it right here, but I know I've seen it a lot. So I had a friend living in China, and he's like, it's crazy at night. There's just tons of people
to happen.
Well, in the last 4 years, and also there's a lot of homeless people, and there's a lot of racism because they had a lot of Nigerians and Africans come, and they didn't give them a lot of jobs, and so a lot of people are living on the streets, and they're like, oh, look at these homeless people that come from other countries. They're trying to take advantage of China. Like they've built this whole.
I miss one.
That's your school, right? That's
this one's not that important, but to me it is, because like whether or not this is a synchronicity, the fact that he had this like the team Denver Nuggets in 1994 or whatever it is. But I think it's plausible just because we sent so much stuff over there. All the time.
Are you saying these 5-year-olds weren't actual fans?
I'm just pointing out how I'm just saying Slavic people are hip and to a fault. Like
Djokovic is the other one. The tennis, he's the number one tennis player in the world. He's famously anti-vaccine, and he was born in Serbia during the bombings. Learned to play tennis in a bombed out
Djokovic,
pool.
was it?
Djokovic. Djokovic. It's DG or DJ. There it is. Novak. Novaks. They like to call. But
he pissed off everybody. It's like he's pretty awesome.
Yeah. No, he's the man. I used to hate him, but now I actually have grown to respect him.
Oh, dude, a lot of tennis people can be really hard to deal with, which I like about him as a factor. Yeah. I don't know. It's cool.
I just found a video. Look it up in the mailbox.
A good tennis cryptic thing real quick is that Roger Federer, he was like the greatest player of all time. His world number one record is 237 weeks, which I found hilarious.
237 weeks. So this is China right now, which is like they wouldn't let this happen before, which is the other interesting thing. Like it used to be locked up inside because they've got plenty of buildings, so they just don't like to have this on the streets. Like they made this illegal.
No, because China is like expediting the social credit system. So now when they do your biometric scan and find out that your credit is insufficient and you talk bad about the government, you cannot get housing. They reject you. I mean, it's like even if they want to apply for some cheap, hole in the wall apartment, you can't even get it. I mean, basically, I don't know how many of these are that case, but definitely unemployment is happening. But the social credit system is also endangering a whole bunch of people.
This isn't a train station where like the train is delayed. No, I'm sorry, I know. Because I've been to fucking like Greyhound stations that totally look like this.
To me.
Yeah,
Los Angeles Skid Row. I just went to Little Tokyo. Oh my god, that's crazy crackheads everywhere. But yeah,
Well,
it's
I'm
happening.
curious because this started on that book that Andreas brought up, the 1840s or the 1890s. But I wonder if the context of that was that white rich aristocracy wasn't having enough kids, because what immediately followed the 1890s was the eugenics movement of the early 1900s that was basically like, all these non-white people are having way too many kids. What are we going to do about this compared to, the white people? So I wonder if that sterilization scare was like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge for one particular reader base.
I mean, it's pretty interesting because there's such a huge amount of forced sterilizations going on in California. Right when the Nuremberg trials happened, the Nazis were like, hey, we were just trying to catch up with America and what they did to the Basques in California and Sonoma County. And also, Kellogg against deaf people, right? Commission.
And that dementia praecox, that's a permanent trigger for me now.
Look at that. 1916, isn't that the year of the Spanish flu? When they have mass inoculation during that time?
Beginning 1919, we call it, but dementia praecox. What is this? The premature dementia?
It's basically early onset dementia. It's if you get dementia before the age of 60 or 70. Typically, if it hits you in your early 20s or before, they decided that it was probably environmental at that point, and that there was ways that you could trigger it and maybe untrigger it. but dementia praecox, that was kind of the big usher in for eugenics, because they basically gave up and said, we don't know what's causing it, we don't know what the cure is, but we do know that you could probably weed it out of like a genetic bloodline.
Wow.
You guys seen Utopia? Either the American version with John Cusack?
I haven't seen the
I saw
it's a show.
Yeah.
It's a show, yeah.
Yeah, that one with John Cusack, that clip was pretty alarming.
So I watched this and I like in 2020 or whatever, and this is like one, like as far as I can see, like the most like heavy hitting, like direct, like COVID hysteria, like vaccination shit, like embedded in a show. Like it's so over the top. But basically, spoiler alert. But what it comes down to is this idea of sterilization being like with vaccine being the most humane way to kind of like bring down the population. So people that feel population control is like the biggest issue or whatever, they're like, well, this is going to work better than genocide. We'll just make it so they can't have children. So, and even beyond that, you can find places that there's no question that, this many people in this generation will not be able to have children at the same rate. It's just the way it is.
Scared of having children anyways,
Well,
that's a Stargate episode where they give everyone cures and it sterilizes them,
That's the plot to Inferno.
Can you look up
sterilization by default, essentially?
Right.
Can you look up the science fiction timeline? Science fiction timeline.
Oh, just the years of Soylent Green and Blade Runner and all those.
Yeah, just so we can see the whole picture. See what? No, actually, not that one.
This works. Yeah, that's
Does the Cusack show seem like it's whistleblowing?
Go back. It was on the bottom.
More like endorsing it.
The previous screen that you were on. Yeah, scrolls down. Yeah, that one.
That's the one he wants. Yeah.
Oh wait, but that's not the whole thing.
Oh, that's not
it's being
that's
cut off. Yeah. Oh, there is. Yeah, that one. Yeah. So 2027, children of men. So we're right on track. We just got 4 more years to do.
Yeah, Johnny Mnemonic was cool.
I can't wait for the fast food wars.
12 monkeys. Well,
that's where Taco Bell beats everybody else, and then we all smoke huge cigarettes with big filters on them.
I mean, if there's like
I'm looking forward to 2037 myself.
If there's a major scarcity of any resource, then the authoritarians in charge will redistribute it and choose who gets it. And so I don't see how children are any different. I feel like if we get to another point in history where the elite don't have children and they want children, then they'll take children, right? Maybe there's a reason for this, but it seems like we're also dealing with this major population drop, and people around the world, are not, it's not so much that there are people that can't breed, because there's places where people are breeding 6-12 children still. It's places like where they're trying to make it impossible to have your own family.
You know what? I mean, after seeing all the, I just made a post about Target. Like Target is facing backlash because they were marketing the LBGT, at the front door of the Target. They're trying to sell that to toddlers, and basically they're already trying to sterilize, babies and infants, infant wear, everything's like
in
got
Target?
rainbows on it.
No,
Yeah,
they're
Target.
selling stuff in Target that have like a tag that says that can help you tuck
friendly.
The tuck
Yeah,
friendly
tuck
for a
friendly,
toddler. It's like, why does a toddler need to tuck it back? Like what? And so,
Yeah.
but then I guess
not
some of
for
the
toddlers,
controversy
it's
is
for adults.
around that the same company or whatever, the same people who are producing this new line of stuff for young
Yeah.
people at Target, they've also produced pins and different types of paraphernalia that are not just anti-turf, they're like basically kill the turfs. So it's like these little kind of death jokes things
great.
and so it's just
read the video in
Yeah.
the mailbox. I put them. Yeah,
Tuck
there's
friendly.
several videos going. All these moms were shopping at Target and just like, what the heck is going on?
So what's funny is that there was an emergency meeting because we're at DragCon 1 right now, actually, on this subject of the Bud Light situation, the Bud Light dilemma. So Target's emergency meeting over LGBTQ merchandise in some stores to avoid the Bud Light situation. So they're like, okay, well, we need to figure out which places are going to go full vapor Sharia on us, and we'll move the merchandise out of there, and then we'll just have it in certain places in the store so that they won't walk by it that often, and then people can find it still, and they're just going to sneak it in, I guess, is the plan.
There was a recent interview too. They're trying to track the orientation of children every generation, and now they're saying 20% of children in the elementary grade level, they basically all consider themselves neutered. They're all non-binary, and they're all deciding, making decisions on what pronouns.
Bill Maher is so under fire all the
babies
time
talking.
for saying it may be from the need to be trendy, right? Like you want to fit in. And I think this
Sure.
is a really, it's an important thought. Someone was so upset because they were talking about, I know this was in the APM Xirtus Advanced Philosophy Memes group, and I'll probably get in trouble for even finding this one if I can find it. But Pedro posted this meme, which was of a drag couple with a baby, and the baby's looking kind of scared, to be honest. And so they put into the meme like fear, confusion, happiness, zero, hope, awareness of how bad things really are, or knowledge, one, like full on. And so some people were like, this is horrible because what are you saying that gays cannot raise children? It's like, no one said that it's impossible. It's like saying, can a dog escape a burning building? Like that's such an objectively things can be done, right? Like someone can cure cancer with their mind. I believe in the power of many things. But is this baby as stoked and is this as efficient in child rearing as the family nucleus? And the tragedy is, like, according to a lot of studies that even the LGBTQ are upset about, because they'll show them these are accurate studies, it shows it's not as good. But maybe that's just because society is against them, right? Because
what you can't see in this picture though is that the person taking this photo is dressed as a satyr.
Yeah, and that's scaring the baby the most.
Yeah. Sorry.
But if the situation is that society won't accept this family, then really just removing the oppressive, toxic persons from their life, then this baby could probably do completely fine being raised in this clown world. But is that true? And it seems like what we're finding is, and we've talked maybe about this Paw Patrol alt-right. Everyone was upset about Paw Patrol being authoritarian propaganda, and they wanted to ban it because kids were learning values the same as they learned from Super Sentai or Power Rangers. They learned how to be in a team, what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad, how to lead, how to follow. And this really offended a lot of people that were trying to do the exact opposite. They're trying to teach kids that you can just, that good and evil is a point of view. And so these are diametrically opposed ideas. And it makes it really hard because the child's trying to model how to behave based on what they're seeing. And if you're a successful family nucleus, you don't need to buy as much from a corporation. So the less successful you are as a person or as a family nucleus, the more stuff you have to buy from a corporation. So who do you think they're going to advertise?
Well, this was almost like an inverse of the Bud Light situation too, because they took off cops, they took off live PD, and there were shouts about, Paw Patrols, basically anything at all that glorified cops for about a 2-year period because of other things that were going on. Everyone just backed away, but then they slowly started coming back, and it became
because kids need
okay
Paw
again.
Patrol.
They
Kids
do
need
Paw
it.
Patrol.
Paw Patrol is the only show that's acceptable for kids, and I'm aware. I mean, I'm sure there's more, but for the most part, no one's trying to do that. They're not trying to teach kids, and this is what made, for instance, again, with Super Sentai in Japan. I mean, Japan was not allowed to have international military status, and something like 60 to 80% of Japan works for the military government in some capacity at this point. And I think it has a lot to do with Super Sentai, because teaching them that the world was eventually going to need them. So they were going to have to rise above. And it does everything that Gene Roddenberry couldn't do with Star Trek. I mean, it's the 90210 Power Rangers version doesn't quite explain like what it is the original Sentai did.
Those are just futuristic Templars.
Yeah, and they're modeling how to be knights, right? And damsels. So it's ladies,
right.
So.
You remember those public service
Surrogate
announcements
Wizard of Oz,
in
too.
G.I. Joe? And it would be like they'd just, they'd give you some major like life advice or whatever. And
Hey, we've been selling you toys for the last 20 minutes, so here's a quick little morality lesson.
Buying toys from China might be cheap, but make sure that you don't chew on them. There could be lead in the paint.
And it may make you might bend your sexual orientation.
Well, speaking about what we were looking at before, like I don't know, man. I just rewatched like this like live action Winnie the Pooh with like that whole thing about not talking to strangers,
Wait,
and it's just
the horror film Winnie the Pooh.
Oh no, it's like it's from the 80s. And it was like, it's talking about, even if it could be your uncle, it could be somebody that you know and trust. And if they touch you in your private place inappropriately, you have to tell your parents, and it could even be your parents. And then you got to tell somebody else. It was just like, but it's not just that they say it and that's what it is. It's that it goes on and on. It's like 40 minutes of Piglet explaining how to fucking deal with somebody touching you inappropriately. And like, I mean, it's something that kids should know. And I think like people today, if it was to come out, it would be all over Twitter, but it's just that, I don't know, that it's weird.
The guy that voiced Winnie the Pooh was like outed for killing puppies or something. I don't know, in the past like 5 years, I feel like.
In the cartoon Winnie the Pooh from the 80s?
Yeah, the guy that voiced it for like most of I don't know, it's like prominence on TV at least.
Well, that
Jim Cummings killed puppies?
I think so.
That name is questionable.
Well, Fauci killed puppies too, so maybe they're in the same club.
Sterling Hall.
So did Descartes, but Descartes would argue that they were just
going over
mechanical
animals.
animals.
Whoa, accused of abuse and animal cruelty. Could it be like, what could it? Maybe he like kicked his dog once. Like
I think from what I remember, his wife left him because he was like found left their puppy in a hot bucket out in the sun. Yeah.
Jim Cummings, how dare you? Now. I'm glad you brought this up. We can never trust Jim Cummings again. I will only listen to the 1966 or 68 version of Winnie the Pooh from now on with Andy Devine or whatever his name is. Okay, we did uranium, gene editing. Super powerful tool. So this is coming all over the place right now. This is actually, and I'm the devil for bringing this up because there's been fights talking about genes recently. But I think it's interesting because it's so pervasive in the news right now. What they're saying is with AI, they're able to pick out every single gene, and they're finding out that we've been only looking for the last 20 years at the exome. So the exome is the part of the DNA outside the genome that makes up, let's see if I can, genome versus.
AI should sort out the junk DNA. Nobody knows what junk DNA is.
That's exactly what we're talking about here. So the idea is that you've got, okay, here we go. Here's a little map. Here's your exome. And this little red sliver. And that's what they've been looking at. And they've been saying, well, we assume we're all pretty much the same, right? Adam and Eve, we read the Bible, so there's probably, we're all just the same. And no. And that's really important because what that means is the exome is a very recent thing. That's some DNA in the last 20,000 to 100,000 years, maybe. But when you start looking at the genome, that's everything else. And that gets really confusing, and some people can get upset because they're thinking, wait, does that mean that we're coming from different, like, does that mean I'm Bigfoot? Or do you think you come from somebody who's Betterfoot? I don't know. Like, I don't know. But that's not what we're finding out. What we're finding out is that there's gene flow. And we've talked about this a bit before. Let me get to the gene flow. There it was. Gene flow is back and forth, and there is no unique genome to the human species. And it's more like we have a plethora of different kinds of DNA from different kinds of humans and hominids that are mixed together. And it's all over the place. So you could be all different kinds of ethnicities and have a bunch of them. You could have Homo erectus, Denisovan, Neanderthal, and you could be black, you could be white.
Hey, Andreas, I gotta say it, man. And I gotta interrupt you, Eddie.
Okay.
This is relatable to the issue with Andy, because I think Andy and his wording kind of like fell short of the sense that I got of what he was trying to communicate there. Because, and also you guys might have different ideas around the Nephilim, which is a very vague thing communicated in the Bible. Like Zechariah Sitchin says, those who from heaven to earth fell, relates that to aliens. Literally it translates as the fallen ones, but it's very obscure. And this idea of different hominoids, I know there's humanoids, hominids. Hominoids is actually a thing. When he used the word race mixing, I think he missed what he was actually trying to get at. What's that?
No, because that's why I got in the argument with him, because just so the audience would know what's going on, is that I wanted Andy to be on the show today so I can hear what you have to say about it, because
you should have a discussion. Twitter sucks, man.
But he threw it out in such a broad term, because I'm in a interracial relationship. I have two mixed kids.
They're not Bigfoot, though.
Right. It's irrelevant to ancient times and what it is that he's
giant with
pointing
6
to.
wings. I mean,
right.
the what do you call it? The Nephilim and the descendants on Earth, whatever you call them, the rulers of Earth. But
the rulers of Earth. See, that's something that's more like a new agey interpretation, as far as I
so
know.
what are the Nephilim supposed to be like? What does the Nephilim mean in Hebrew? Like, what is that?
Fallen ones, I believe.
Fallen angels.
How's Nephilim connected to Anunnaki? That's what I want to know.
Right, totally different. Everything gets conflated, and I blame Sitchin for a lot of this, because there's kind of these like. Yeah, I don't know. I think the point is that the context of, from what I gather, and Andy can correct me if he thinks different than this, but he's very not into the whole alien thing. He sees the alien thing as a psyop, and he's welcome to take the position that he wants to take, as far as I'm concerned on that. Like that's not the issue. It was his choice of language, because like what the connection that Andreas was just making just explained the issue there, as far as I'm concerned. Like before I jumped in, like. That's kind of the point there. And so he's just kind of distinguishing that he doesn't believe that these are actually like, alien entities, that these could have been a people that existed that were related to in these kind of ways.
This is all a matter of labeling. I think
Right.
if anything, that I don't want to apologize to Andy for my outburst, because I had a really bad day that day, because I was now invited to.
Well, isn't that all the more reason to apologize?
People.
I
was supposed to go to storyboard group with us all full of white people. They didn't
I'll
invite
do
me.
it for you.
I was really mad at them. Like, you racist. But I
this is what Facebook arguments are, though. People get online and they are emotionally clear.
So I wanted to see Andy today. Actually, he didn't pop on the ear, but I feel like like you said, David, his word, because I asked him again. I said, "You mean human race? Like two different human race, like black and white or Asian, whatever?"
But no, those are not racist.
So he basically, I feel like he doubled down on it. So
it's not black or white.
I got really mad. What do you mean?
Ethnicities are not racist, and that's the thing. Stefan says, by the way, I don't believe in race, but definitely believe in racism. Exactly. I think that's a thing. Race is, maybe we're going to find out, the wrong word for alleles. And the more we look into, this is really what blew my mind. And I love this guy, Stefan Milo. I'm going to try to get him on the show. He did some amazing research. Not that guy. Let me find his face. This guy here. Amazing. I think he's from Australia or New Zealand or something. But basically what we thought we knew about the Homo erectus in Indonesia is totally based on 18th century examination, without actually looking at DNA or any on the records or anything else. What we're finding is that what we thought of as Homo erectus in Indonesia might actually be Denisovan. And there's tons of evidence of Denisovan. And so what that also says is, where do they say, that they come from? And so a bunch of it is that the myths were that they came from Samoa, but the genetic testing shows an epicenter in Samoa for Denisovan as well. And this is interesting because there's like 3 different haplotypes there as well. So you have several different kinds of ethnicities that all experience Denisovan. And that's huge, because then that means you've got, this is crazy. Now you've got Bigfoot, Littlefoot, Hobbit, Denisovan, all of these different things. And in the last month, they've started saying, okay, well, these genes are coming from the genome. They're not coming from the exome. This gene for your nasal passages will come from being Neanderthalic, or this will come from being Denisovan. And that's really interesting, because we're opening up all of this to something that's far more universal than ethnicity, because this is something that actually most humans have some form of primitive hominid DNA.
I'm really quick to at this point to entertain the idea that there's actual coexisting smaller groups of hominoids that like have elongated skulls and stuff that are like some of the most richest people on the planet. There's that woman who had 15 years at the World Bank that did that interview where she talks about being in a meeting, and the person took off their headdress and had this elongated skull, and that they were like all logic, like a Vulcan or something, where they just had zero empathy and all this kind of shit. Like, it's so out there, but like I can totally, that would make sense. Like that would explain a lot. It's like,
there's also a lot of people
a bizarro version of Catherine Austin Fitz. I don't know if you know her at all, but she's totally legit and like down to earth and like so smart and whatever, has so much knowledge. But then this Karen Hughes comes out of the world. It's like, I met with aliens at the World Bank and they look alike. I don't know. Didn't pass my test.
15 years at the World Bank, so that's just like really now. That's where you're going with. Yeah, okay.
Wonder if she's still around.
Catherine Austin. I mean, she was in the Reagan administration, right? She was the Treasury.
She was in the first Bush administration.
Who are we talking about again? What's her name?
Catherine Austin Fitz. She was assistant secretary to the treasurer for Bush 1, and she is like all about the black budget, and she was like,
she's really good
pursued by the government for like a decade, and she kind of basically won her lawsuit. Whistleblower, and I saw her speak at the Secret Space Program conference in 2014, and it was one of the best talks I've ever heard about the black budget, 9/11, Oklahoma City. She ties it all together with the whole like Phoenix Lights kind of UFO kind of thing that's actually going on. So anyway, I would steer people towards her.
Yeah, it should be great to be on the show, to be honest. Actually, you know what? Speaking of the hominids and those, I tried to invite Lauren Coleman, but he didn't accept.
Oh, that'd be cool.
I know. Because this would be perfect subject for him.
The Nephilim is really interesting to me because, we've deviated to this idea of thinking of them as aliens, but they're not necessarily. It could be that they're like you said, fallen angels. I mean, a lot of people associate them with giants. They look like Wikipedia, the 1800s dictionary encyclopedia was calling them giants. So, I mean, what are Nephilim? I mean, could this be one of the primordial humans? Or one of the things that I like to think is, what if the Nephilim is the DNA, right? What is it? Because it says, and those are the days when the angels made what's it, Genesis 6? Let's just read it. They mated with the daughters of men.
Yeah, you got it.
King James. It came to pass when men began to multiply in the face of the earth, and the daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the angels, the daughters of men, and they were fair, and they took them wives, of which they chose. But okay, so let's go to like the amped version or something like.
That's the thing.
The Amplified Bible. Now it happened when men began to multiply on the face of the land, and the daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men were beautiful and desirable, and they took wives for themselves. So it'll also be good to just read it in like Hebrew, because again, it keeps saying
that's the thing. If you read this
Sons
in
of God.
Hebrew, then you're going to go word by word, and you're going to have 10 to 20 different words for every word, and you can kind of get like a crazy deeper sense of like what it is that's being pointed to in a way that you'll never get from a translation. That's why to translate the Bible at all is like, it kind of sucks. And you can
AMP
say the
is
same thing
nice
about
'cause
the
it
fucking
has-
Odyssey.
AMP has footnotes, so far others have interpreted this reference to be a royalty or rulers possessed by fallen angels.
Can you
B,
go to the
descendants of
15th
Seth.
verse?
Yeah, just really quick though. B, the descendants of Seth who called upon the Lord, or C, fallen angels. Okay, let's get to 15.
I just want to see how it
This
puts it.
is the way you are to make it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, its width 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. 450.
That's the 153rd verse of Genesis of the Bible. Just so
Right.
I was just thinking that's the dimensions of the ark.
So on the dimensions of the ark here, if you look at that book by William Sterling, The Canon, it's one of the best books I've ever looked at. It's a lot of math and stuff, but he breaks down the thing about the ark and how it relates to Solomon's temple, the measurements given for Solomon's temple. This is an incredible read. I couldn't recommend it enough. Even
Scott
just
says Harryback supremacy is not a crime for Australian money.
You know, on that same note of the canon, there's another book that I highly recommend if you like this kind of thing. It's called Jesus Christ, Son of God, Ancient Cosmology. I'm trying to figure out who the artist was. David Fideler, 1993. Highly recommended. It's right along those same lines. Yeah, this one's like one of my number one to like reference books whenever this kind of like topic comes up.
Cool.
Well, I'm trying to look up the woman. She's been a whistleblower for some years. She was in the U.S. Air Force. Oh, God, I can't find her name.
What if Nephilim is DNA? Like, what if the DNA itself is able, and so we are the children of that? I don't know.
I dig it.
I found this woman. Yeah, hold on. I'm posting right now. Yeah, I can look it up. Yeah, so this is pretty telling testament. Well, you know, she started out with Project Camelot, and then started.
Is she a target right now?
Oh, this woman in this video is that woman from Project Camelot, or one of the women from Project Camelot?
No. I just posted it.
Oh, this is the Target.
Oh,
video.
two different things. Oh my God! I was like, dude, I watched that video of her in Target. I was like, oh my God, this is the Project Camelot lady. Everything like a connected mother. Oh, Jesus. Okay, never mind.
Oh boy, that would.
It's an alien conspiracy at Target.
They're
not all just alien conspiracy. They're pretty practical sometimes.
The bull's eye. Come on, the bull's eye. All right.
So
where do you think all the bombs are going to land?
Basically, this woman. You can't see her picture. The video is not available, but you can look up her name and you see her picture. But she was abducted when she was a cadet, and basically she claimed that she was abducted by the aliens, and then surfaced somewhere in the lab with military personnel, and then basically she was raped by aliens, and they forced in vitro alien genes into her body. She basically gave birth to a whole bunch of alien hybrids.
I believe her immediately. Say no more.
Well, I mean, we're talking about Nephilim situation, so this is like a modern Nephilim, you know. But her testimony, maybe you can look up in Rumble. Rumble might have her videos. Yeah, because
that must be what's going
YouTube
on. Okay.
Absolutely censored a whole bunch of these interviews.
Shame on you, YouTube.
Yeah,
you know who
but you guys should give it a listen, because she's pretty like scared to death about what happened to her, and then she just multiple times getting abducted, and she could not have birth she could not give birth anymore because her womb is just completely scarred. The doctor basically saw all the scarring and said, "How many babies do you have?" And she never had her own baby.
Well, the last baby had 18 legs with claws and a thorned abdomen. So,
dude, that's the thing. Like, if you ever read Rosemary's Baby, the description of the baby, it's not really in the movie. They just show its eyes, probably a reference to blue eyes, because she didn't know if her baby was Woody Allen's or Frank Sinatra's. But like, the baby is so freaky. He's got like flipper hands or something, and he's all furry.
What was Rosemary's description? She said it right. She's like, got like crazy red eyes or something like that. I don't know.
No, she says its eyes. What did you do to its eyes, or whatever? And then the theory presented by Tracy Twyman was that was a reference to Mia Farrow getting pregnant while they're filming it, not knowing if the baby is Frank Sinatra's or Woody Allen's, which is significant because of Frank Sinatra's ties to Catholicism and the mob, and that the idea being like so he filed for divorce the day that the scene was shot for the impregnation. So it's like the idea being that if there was going to be
Trial by fire.
The baby has no old blue eyes, basically.
Right.
So what's weird also is like right now, I remember like a month before I left Minnesota, there was this guy who I used to get gas from, and he got arrested because I don't know the whole thing. I think he killed somebody, but they got some DNA off of a coffee cup, and then his cousin had done 23andMe, and they proved that 20 years earlier he'd like committed this crime. So they got him and everything. But it's getting so much easier now because of DNA testing, and that's like we think of it as, oh, they're gonna use it to track you. It's way more complicated than that. That's just the immediate signs of it. But they're able to pull your DNA from thin air now. There's so many places to find your DNA. And David Duffy, a wildlife geneticist at the University of Florida, just wanted a better way to track disease in sea turtles, started finding human DNA everywhere he looked, and started figuring out, okay, eDNA, trace amounts of genetic material that are all living things leave behind, are just all over the place, floating in air, lingering in water, snow, honey, even in your teacup. And researchers have used these methods to detect invasive species. Now they're using it for forensics, and also just because once you do this, you have you have to sequence it. Right. So you've sequenced the DNA. So it's all part of the collection process. And then you figure out where it's sorted to. So very quickly you can figure out, oh, this belonged to some person, not to an animal. And then it gets sent to that data category. And then AI sorts it with others. Like, oh, this was Steve. This is like Jeff's brother, and that's how quickly
Did they just use COVID tests to collect more people's DNA everywhere? Is that a thing? Is that a theory?
That's convinced that's the next logical step here. Yeah, they're like, please blow your nose so we have some extra.
Right. Ghostbusters. Somebody blows your nose and you want to keep it, or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember there being something where they were telling like Russians not to do that for some reason because they were worried that they were trying to target their blood specifically. I can't remember the specifics.
I want to find that article. That's really interesting. What was that? Russia DNA testing. The reason that's interesting is because it's really easy to create something that targets specific genes, and so it might be really healthy for a lot of people, but by accident, maybe it will kill off the population of Welsh or something that has the sequence from the original vaccine creation. This is something that could be by accident. However, you could do it on purpose too. You could do it on purpose.
It's a really existing technology. I'm pretty sure ever since the Tunguski experiment, all those race targeting. I don't want to use the word race anymore.
Oh yeah,
DNA targeting bioweapons.
Right, and then simultaneously, isn't Russia DNA super soldiers? Aren't they trying to breed super soldiers or something like that?
I mean, you can talk about race. It's when you want to say something about race that you have like a generalization that you take to be an absolute, or there's just something derogatory. It's like, that's the thing. Somebody said it, like not believing in race, but acknowledging racism. It's like, I don't know. I think it's important to be able to discuss things freely. And haven't you heard it's a battle of words?
Yeah.
Speaking of Russia and weird genetics and transgender stuff, you guys know this basketball player, Brittany Griner?
Oh,
right.
Of course.
Number 42. I just was like watching it, sitting in a restaurant, the TV was on, and I heard Brittany Griner talking, having never seen or heard her before. I was like, that's a man talking.
Well, she takes steroids, right? Isn't that the thing?
Thank you, Russians, for letting me out.
Right, and so that kind of puts the whole perspective.
They
of
put her in a Russian male prison. Right?
Like why did they detain her exactly? Probably to figure out what the hell's going on
in the first place, right?
In this country. So anyway,
she seems pretty tall, which I guess
was ordered
could
to
be
take
like
a DNA
Nephilim
test
type thing. No,
She was ordered to take a DNA test by the Russians to figure out whether she was male or female. And I recall that I could be wrong, but didn't they keep her in a male prison? Was like the thing that happened?
I don't remember that. I wasn't paying
No,
attention when it
think
happened.
I think what really happened was that the Russians like, hey, you can't play against us. You can play against our woman. You're not. You're a cheater. You know.
Didn't we
thing
trade her
is,
for an
like,
arms dealer?
I know that like I've seen pictures, like people have said, no, she's a woman. And look, if not, she's always played a woman, at least because young Brittany Griner as a child, you know, this is her. So
Look at the shoulders. I don't know.
But then you're saying that her whole life she's been trans, which is okay. It could be,
Right.
but it's like that's a long time.
But
I mean,
that's
she's
sort of like
got a bit
a
of
can of
feminine
worms.
face.
It's like
Yeah,
opens
it's like
up some
Jamie Lee
weird-
Curtis, you know, she's got an extra little nub there, and then for the rest of her life, you know, she's just a woman. But hey, she's, you know, her clit is 5 times too big. No, I'm sorry, that's a rumor.
It's
Probably
totally
it's probably like a gerbil.
I love the rumor,
Richard
though.
Gere rumor.
It's a great rumor.
Is that like
Think
a
about
Joan
it as
Rivers
long as
rumor
you have
too?
to.
Dude, I don't know, man. That whole thing about Joan Rivers not being dead, I kind of entertain that because like
Really?
I followed that rabbit hole a little bit, and you know, when they're like she's been spotted at this restaurant or whatever, and there's like footage of it, and just like the way that Joan Rivers like died so shortly after saying, you know, that talking about Michelle, you know, being like, you know, Michelle's a man, right? We all know it. She says that.
Go
She's,
watch
the
that
fact
clip.
that she says we all know it, it's just like, oh shit. We don't talk about it, but
I love that
you
that's
know.
the source of that conspiracy theory is essentially Joan Rivers. That's my favorite part of it.
Well, there's more. No, the source of the conspiracy theory is Obama himself saying it on multiple occasions, referring to her as Michael, saying my husband Michael, and that whole thing. That's why I'm like, when people and I've talked about this before. Like, I'm just like, if they pull that off, like if they manage to have like in the midst of all the controversy around gay marriage and everything through his presidency, if they actually had a trans woman as first lady, like I'm like standing ovation. That's like up there with like Paul is dead shit. Like if that was real, you know what I mean? Like I'm like bravo, you know, I'm impressed, you know. But, you know,
I'm
sorry.
continually
Just
impressed by the
complete-
levels of
I
their
don't-
psyops.
I don't even think Barbara Bush was. The more I look at the photos of her younger years, I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
I mean, I've been
wait,
waiting
that's-
for someone to
that's
ever
that
convince me
dude,
since
man.
I was very young. I never thought. I mean, I just wanted to reiterate that you should read this article from The Economist because this is cool because several people from UCSC were involved in this 350-person high-quality genome sequencing research. And so, yeah, it's really nice to know that there's just thousands of different variants that are that make up what we are now. That was cool. The other one was Taiwan is denied access to the health assembly.
Yeah,
Did you see
yeah,
that?
the World Health Organization. Yeah,
So what's going?
They cannot even they cannot even send representatives to.
And
to
the
be
presidential
observers.
election's coming, so it's all obviously part of like, come on, this election is the answer. We've been wondering what's going on with why are they waiting for 2024 for the war, and it's because of the election. No, what do you think?
Well, I mean, it all depends on who's because you know if they're going to elect another Democratic Progressive Party candidate, that all bets are off. World War III is coming.
Three
I mean,
popular mayors
because-
are running against each other, right?
You know, when I lived in Taiwan during those years, right? I mean, it's always been run by the Kuomintang, the KMT party, the nationalists, and they have always been secretly like making secret handshakes with the communists, basically because all those years, 8 years I lived in Taiwan during the 80s, is all about you know fight the communists and get back together, unify the two Chinas, right? But of course, here comes this party, and they all this time they've been saying we want to be independent. We're not Chinese, we're Taiwanese. So China, of course, will never have that. So the minute you know they elect any of those candidates that if they see any signs of a KMT losing the election again, yeah, all bets are off. The war is going to happen. So,
Yeah.
But China basically strong arm, you know, the WHO. Yeah, they basically they banned the Taiwanese representatives from showing up. So
Right, and China is all upset because U.S. and Taiwan are trying to open weird floodgates. They're getting weird friendly, right? Like they're trying to not just they're like, hey, you know, why don't you bring your kids? Like they're trying to import Taiwan to Arizona. They want to get as many Taiwanese.
That's basically what's happening. But I mean, isn't that that's an industry thing, right? I mean,
yeah, but it's like we're talking tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people.
Sure. Yeah, I want to go back
this
just
is
for
like
a
the
second and
Nirvana
address
trail.
something I saw in the comments. So people are like, their kids look like them. So I had to get to the bottom of this because people put it out there. They're like, show me one picture of Michelle pregnant. You can't find one. You can't find a real one.
I thought
And the
she
thing
said
is,
that she didn't in
no,
vitro, right?
the thing is though, is that she said you can find a BBC article on what's it called? What's the abbreviation for when you inseminate, when you put the sperm and the egg together? Because she said the story is that she said she had a miscarriage and that she had to get it artificially done.
Yeah, dude. It's like, she
so
told
IVF. But the thing is that when you look
she
through
didn't
this
say
article,
she got the IVF. She just
right.
said
Well,
it
that's
was
exactly where I'm
conceived
going with
by
this.
IVF.
So I'm like, was there a surrogate? And they leave that vague. And if they're going to leave it vague and not
Come
just say
on.
it was probably a surrogate. So then it just opens up the more speculation. So yeah,
I didn't even know she didn't admit it was. I thought we knew that even because like the kids don't look like them. They look like the other. Who are the kids? Real okay, Obama kids, real parents. If I type that in, is it just going to come up? There they are, right? No, that's not it. That didn't work at all.
During the Obama administration, did you guys follow Freeman, right? Freeman Fly.
Is this it? This guy, right? Isn't he the real dad or something? I forget what the deal is. Biological parents. No, that's right. Because they're still the real parent. I meant biological. Sorry, that was politically incorrect.
But remember what Freeman Fly said about the whole family's cloned. I mean, Obama's cloned. The daughters are cloned. I don't know. He didn't quite mention.
Well, he said they were clones of Akhenaten, right?
Akhenaten, yeah. But actually,
there they are. They're the real parents. There they are, right there.
I like listening to Freeman Fly because I feel like
Allegedly.
I'm sitting around a fire at a rainbow gathering, and there's just this guy that's just going off, and everyone gets kind of quiet and just lets him do his thing because he's obviously like got something to
Could be all lies. I could be just leading you astray. Sorry, everybody. This is horrible because I think if Taiwan is pushed out of the UN meetings, then they already were. So let's be honest.
When I arrived in Taiwan, that was when Taiwan was rejected by the UN because that was the time when Jimmy Carter.
Then?
Well, yeah,
wow.
Because Jimmy. Well, when my dad, I don't know if that was one of the reasons my dad decided to go to Taiwan to protect my grandpa, because that was a time when Jimmy Carter said, "Okay, we're going to recognize China as the only China, and Taiwan can take a back seat." So Jimmy Carter was the one who sold out Taiwan, and so
that guy sucks.
And now it feels like it's happening all over.
Everybody likes Jimmy Carter. I don't get it. He just seems so evil and lame. And the amount of money it costs to fly him somewhere to like fake paint a house when he could just like take that money and pay people to paint houses. I just hate him. I hate this man so much.
Just devil's advocate here. I think one of the things that Jimmy Carter kind of had going for him was that, a lot of people as president, they feel like they have to do something. They have to do a lot and do something significant enough to really leave their mark. Whereas Jimmy Carter just kind of for the most part, he just kind of did the job. And so a lot of those things.
I disagree. I think if it weren't for him, the Soviet Union would have collapsed 20 years earlier. Him and the CIA. The
most popular presidents are the ones that are president during wartime, and they're the ones that everyone remembers the most or whatever, And he doesn't really have that, He wasn't really a war president, which is the one thing one of the main things I could say for him that I'm like, yeah, he wasn't.
But so he's an empty hand in one empty hand while the other hand's doing all the magic tricks. So while he's trying to de-escalate the American military, the CIA are expanding power all over these privatized banana republics across the world, and they're doing the Laos campaign and the horrible the most horrible things we did, I think, were probably under Carter.
They all fill in each other's blanks for evil. So it's like that's the thing, is that it's always like, okay, well, they were cool in this direction, but they're evil as fuck in this direction. It happens with let's do the time warp again. It's just a step to the left and another step to the right, and then we go through it. It's just that whole thing, So right. I don't know. I could talk a lot of shit about Reagan, probably more than I could Carter, but that's probably just because I was raised in California. But it's just and not just in California, but middle class in California or whatever.
Irish Catholic president.
Look at this picture. Wasn't Carter the one who brought Brzezinski?
Do you see who? Yeah, I was about to say, you guys see who this guy is. This is Brezhnevinsky.
Yeah, I absolutely think that if there's anything Carter did wrong, is putting him in charge of foreign policy.
Never
Because
spell it.
And his
this guy
vice
is the number one
president
killer.
was Walter Mondale, and Mondale got his start at NASA after they had a fire, and I think they lost some people.
Let's see Carter's advisor. So shortly, the public will be unable to reason for
guy's in
themselves. They'll be only able to parrot information they've been given on the previous night's news. Tell me this isn't Carter's campaign in Saturday Night Live. Shortly, the public. Come on.
This guy created Mujahideen. This guy is a CIA Mujahideen. He created Obama bin Laden.
But he's telling you what he's doing. So like with like Orwell or like Huxley or something, like there you can take it two ways. You're like, Orwell was trying to warn us, Huxley was trying to warn us, or were they trying to condition us to actually accept this whole thing? And like honestly, I could just as easily take it in both directions. Like I could easily take it either way. Like that's the weird thing. You're like, oh well, at least he's telling us what they do. You know, I guess you do the same thing with Mein Kampf.
This is it. He's like, all right, we'll let the Soviets embarrass themselves in Afghanistan, and we'll pick up the pieces. How is it? Everything? And some people think it's Bush, but it's Brzezinski.
Well, let me tell you the thing about Brzezinski is that you guys read his book, right? The Grand Chessboard, right?
Yeah.
That book was written 20 years ago. Everything
40,
that's happening right now with Russia and China is exactly in his book. They're basically following his book, and it's a war strategy, how to encircle China and Russia, and it's ingenious. I mean, if he's anything, he's a genius strategist, and his book is being copied right now on the battlefield.
Yeah, I guess it isn't that long ago. Well, also his book, The Technotronic Age, is
I haven't read that one. No,
that's from the 70s, and it's brutal. America in the Technotronic Age. The Technotronic era involves the gradual appearance of a more controlled society. Such a society would be dominated by elite, unrestrained by traditional values, and it goes into the ideas like we already have stoplights, and we already have sirens for cars that can pass through and have license to avoid the stoplights. And the idea that people become comfortable with this concept that you could have that literally on someone's hat or jacket and they could skip a line, right?
This is all RFID, AI, everything. All these books, people got to read it because he had everything laid
Between
out.
Two ages.
And not to mention, he is the founder of Trilateral Commission, right?
He helped with Rockefeller. Rockefeller was a reason because he wanted to include Sony. I forget also a few other like Order of the Dragon Japanese families.
Hey, remember we were talking about Noam Chomsky and Epstein, and it's funny because at the time I was just like, oh come on, man. He was blackmail. So like that was the whole. So what was it? He helped him with something. He gave him money. What was the deal? You guys follow this? What came out with Noam Chomsky?
He met with the president of Israel or the prime minister of Israel.
Right. So this is the thing. I felt forever that I'm like Noam Chomsky's been compromised, and so and it's one of the things that really annoys me about when the Epstein conversation comes up is that while I agree, underage girls. This is a problem. The blackmail is so rampant and so over the top. I'm like, that seems to be the thing to what I want to know the details. I don't want to just know the names of the people who are in the book. I want to know what people were being blackmailed for, when, and what for, and what were they doing at that time, and what were they saying?
I post an article. It's in the mailbox. Yeah.
One reason it came to mind is because Noam Chomsky wrote that book about manufacturing consent, which is seems to just be a play on Edward Bernays' book, The Engineering of Consent, which is a far more honest read, in my opinion, than Noam Chomsky's The Manufacturing of Consent. It's all so weird, but here you go.
So why is he saying it's none of your business?
That was a weird response.
What is so legit that he has to say it's none of your
Same reason that it's not important who killed JFK.
Yeah,
right.
9/11.
Right. Because he's about to die and he wants to just coast. He's, Noam Chomsky is the epitome of the 80-year-old Nazi that's about to get arrested and is just holding it off.
Right. But this is April 30th, 2023. There's even more stuff has come out regarding Noam Chomsky's, what his dealings actually were with Epstein. But the thing is that we don't know beyond that how he may have been compromised.
You don't think his whole profession in NLP has anything to do with programming, MK Ultra, any of that line of how to become handling these mind control subjects. But
He looks
like
think
Charles
he has everything
looks
to
like
do with
Bobby
it.
Fischer.
No disrespect to Bobby Fischer though.
No, none at all.
Hey, Alex read his book, Bobby Fischer's book. That is not
That just
Charles
got
Manson.
wild.
Manson.
How
Just
about
chatting.
we call it extortion instead of blackmail? Yeah, because blackmail does sound kind of racist. It is extortion. I mean,
Yeah, but the
extortion is
thing,
such a word though. Exploitation I've been using recently, and I think extortion is better. Like, so the gay LGBTQ corporate logo, when they put rainbows on their Nikes to sell, that like children have made in sweatshops in China, I think that's extortion, right? They're like, well, because you want to help the gay movement, so you better buy these sweatshop shoes.
people that have a big platform that a lot of people look to be an authority on a matter are really, subject to, people wanting to influence them to say what it is that they want to say on an issue. Like that's worth a lot. I'm just saying that's a valuable thing. And somebody like Noam Chomsky, I see this and I go there because I've been thinking it for years that he seems compromised. That like it's since 9/11 when he was just like saying that the commission report was just like that's the final word. I'm like, dude, how could you say that? Are you a fucking idiot or are you a liar or what? Because it's one or the other.
I'm curious where you
Hey,
guys stand on Howard Zinn, because I always felt he was almost in like the same.
I like
camp
to
as the
lay
Chomsky
down.
area.
Howard Zinn came out of nowhere. I just remember, I'm anti-war.
I wouldn't say it came out of nowhere. Like, so basically, if you're a professor and you're with McGraw-Hill, is that out of nowhere? He gets his book, and it's like every friggin' community college class I took with a multicultural emphasis required that I had a Howard Zinn book. It was not negotiable. So
Was
like,
that-
I'm sure I was forced to buy it 7.
Well,
On
was that
the
the-
other hand, he was a 9/11. He was like kind of
and then
open to questioning.
and then they were like, "You better stop all that." And he's like, okay, yeah. I'll take the
Probably.
boathouse. I'll take the boathouse. But
Well,
I
he
mean,
died pretty soon after.
some of the stuff he said though was not true, and that was fine because he was talking. He's like, well, let's talk about Eurocentricity, and he was deviating around Ward Churchill. And I think Ward Churchill was the more interesting character at the Zinn time. He is a Native American, came out against vaccines, came out against 9/11, did all this stuff that upset the left, but he was a hardcore leftist because he was anti-Eurocentric. And he was saying that the Jesuit schooling of Native American children had really modeled poorly and had taken away their actual excelling skills and stopped their epigenetic consequences of becoming who they were through tribal fetishes and taboo. I mean, this guy was, but he was from Yale, and everything he said sounded like an MLA format when he wrote it. So it was okay up to a point. But Zinn would say, okay, well, like, before Columbus got here, Arawak Indians were just J-Lo on these banana boats, and it was beautiful. And I think he's a little, like, it's important for people who've never considered that. I mean, because a lot of people thought, okay, well, these Native Americans, they're so lucky. We came here and showed them how to use the wheel. There's a lot of people that thought that way in 1999 and 2000. And I think that's where Zinn was useful because, like, actually, was it so bad when Hawaiians only had to work 20 minutes a day? Was it so bad?
Mm-hmm.
How about immortal chimps? What do you guys think? So there's this new gene therapy that I'm interested in getting, but they have to test it on monkeys first. And what it does is it gives you Blade Runner eyes, says the scientist from Harvard. So Life Biosciences, a adjacent group of students and grad students from Harvard Medical, have created a system that reprograms genetic markers and restores visual function in primates that had their eyes damaged with lasers. They're growing back their eyes. Okay. And so, yeah.
Well, wait, hold on. They're breaking them first with lasers and then growing them back.
Well, like the thing is, you leave a laser running and some monkeys will just stare at it. It's a sad truth about lasers. They're too interesting. But
It's the sad truth about monkeys.
Yeah. And humans.
I would.
Yeah, you got to tell people not to stare at lasers. In essence, the team injected their eyes with special chemicals that can partially reprogram cells to have them return to a more youthful state. A decidedly, quote, Blade Runner, I'm not just kidding, approach to vision restoration if it's borne out by future research. The study involves 10 primates, 6 of whom were treated with the new gene therapy. 4 had controlled solution injected their eyes. That's not fair. They lasered their eyes and then thought salt water was going to...
But what's weird about that is that's more like Blade Runner, the movie, the book called Blade Runner, the movie by William S. Burroughs, than it is the film adaptation Blade Runner of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep from Philip K. Dick. You know what I'm talking about? Because this is all about the book is all about pharmaceutical in the future, right? It's the
Oh, hey,
The-
you know what?
75, $80.
Can I talk about this? Is that Elon Musk just quoted Blade Runner last night?
Oh, really?
And yeah, basically, this, you know, I've been working on the sync for a whole year, since 2019. You know, the Beetlejuice, right? The Beetlejuice sync.
Oh, yeah.
So he basically quoted Batty. Maybe let me drop you
the tears in the rain comment.
Yeah, tears in the rain, and it basically saying the watch of the battle on the shoulder of Orion. The shoulder of Orion is Beetlejuice, the red giant star, and basically the star is going to blow up. I feel like it's. I mean, now the articles just came out 2 days ago saying that it's becoming unstable again. So wait, hold on, let me just pull it up.
What does that mean for Betelgeuse to become unstable?
Basically, because it's been dimming. It dimmed. The biggest, craziest sync is that it dimmed in October 2019, and that's the same time. Bill Gates and John Hopkins started the event 201, pandemic exercise, and also China also started the Wuhan military war games.
Do you need any more evidence besides Event 201 to see the preconception of the opportunism that surrounded COVID?
It's hysteria? So hard. So many people. It's like I'm still telling people
day,
about Event 201. People still don't know that Event 201 that they emulated COVID or a pandemic before COVID. People still don't know this.
When I'm having a debate with somebody on that matter, and I bring up Event 201 or Klaus Schwab, and they don't know what I'm talking about, like if you say the Great Reset, and they're like, "That's a conspiracy theory," and I'm like, Klaus Schwab wrote the book called The Great Reset. Like there's like with both of those things, it's like, dude, you don't really need anything else. Like it's all right there, really. I mean, if you watch Event 201, there's so many of those videos, and like, give me a break. And that's all funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Also, I just wanted to say like something that's relatable to what we were talking about before, the monkey, that ties back with Eric Clapton, is there's this kind of like this funny irony of like when Eric Clapton came out in whatever it was 2021 2022 and talked about adverse reactions to the vaccine that he experienced. Apparently, like people reacted with, "Hey, this motherfucker said these racist comments in the 80s, check it out, he's full of shit." And then it's funny because when Neil Young then was like, "I don't want to share a platform with Joe Rogan, so I'm going to go over here to Sirius to be with Glenn Beck." It was like no one brought up, like they bring that up about Eric Clapton in the past with his like racism stuff, but no one brought up what like Neil Young had to say about gay people in the 80s when everyone was freaked out about AIDS, and he was like, if one of the, excuse me, this is in context, I'm not saying this,
right,
he said, I won't even say it, but yeah, with the handling my groceries, I don't want them handling my groceries because he's afraid of AIDS. But then I look at that, and it's very much like the same kind of fear of the COVID. Othering of the otherable when it came to the unvaccinated.
When AIDS hit, it was like COVID, and that's
right. So people may have brought it up, but not the media. Like the media was quick with Eric Clapton to be like, "Oh, well, check out this racist stuff from him way back when." And then it was like, maybe you might want to talk about the bigoted stuff from Neil Young, because they're all, both, relatable in their own ways, I guess. But actually, the Neil Young one is even more relatable, I'm
going to try to jump through the last couple things because this was good. If you ever code or you don't know how to code, you can start coding right away for free if you get on Colab, because now if you start typing something, it'll help you write it. Like AI will write your code for you. And you can even say, "I tried writing this. How would you write it?" And it'll write it again for you better. So nobody has an excuse not to write a code anymore. Let's say you want a code that will, I don't care. Get into coding. You need to do it.
Hey, Andreas, did you finish Silicon Valley, the show?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, I think it's the last episode that Bill Gates shows up and talks about how Pied Piper failed. And so, like, from the very beginning, as soon as it said Pied Piper, when I first started watching the show, I was like, oh, dude, it's going to be a disaster because it's Pied Piper. Like, you're going to, and I didn't actually predict that it was actually going to be literal rats.
But also the Pied Piper is going to bring you into the wall, brings the children into the wall, right? It swallows them up in the hole. I mean, not to fully spoiler the show, but what's interesting about it is they so succeed in creating an AI encryption that's so good that it can decrypt anything. And so it renders all passwords and privacy obsolete. And that would be the end of civilization as we know it. And that's kind of what is the dilemma that they face by creating such a perfect encryption system. Good job, AI.
That's why we all have to be microchipped.
Also, the AI is named Anton after Anton LaVey, which is adorable.
If you're jonesing for more of that, it's not a comedy, but Halt Catch Fire is well worth watching that within that same kind of vein.
I can't help myself. I finished that too. I loved it. Even in the 5th season, I got problems. But Taiwan's Last Comfort Woman, you know how they used to like rape women and like force them to be military concubines. Let's not let that happen again. That's kind of on my mind tonight with Taiwan. It's like as soon as she dies, they're in the process of starting it over.
Well, China is they need a lot of women, so
yeah. So I think too. I hate to make a synchronicity. I hate to make a synchronicity, but I think it's there. Yeah, we talked with Floriensis, NAACP founder issued travel advisory warning saying, what was this about? You sent me this.
No. I would just it's just a commentary on the Freemasonry because all the founders of NAACP are.
Oh, Prince Hall Freemason, right.
Yeah, anyways,
what happened to Pink?
I don't know what happened to her.
The thing is that Maynard has dressed this way for concerts like since the 90s. Like it's not like this is this sudden thing for him to be like, I'm protesting against Florida. It's like, dude, you're gonna dress that way anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's like Genesis P.
Oh, so yeah, there's that. Governing of superintelligence is coming, and where was the quote I saw? It was like, we believe it would be unintuitively risky and difficult to stop the creation of superintelligence because the upsides are so tremendous. The cost to build it decreases each year. The number of actors building it rapidly increasing, and it's inherently part of the technological path. But on stopping it would require something like a global surveillance regime, and even that isn't guaranteed to work. So we have to get it right. So I think that's also happening. They're in the process of creating a governance agency, and OpenAI is even kind of petitioning this saying, hey, we don't have anyone oversighting us yet. So let's start talking about how we're going to build that. So we're in the process of probably seeing an oversight of superintelligence, which how ironic is that?
I need to get out my iron to iron out all the irony.
Oh, there's a very interesting video that was on Joe Rogan's if you scroll back up because you passed let's go back. Yeah, just go down very soon. With this one, go up. No, it's about in Arizona. So basically, what's her name? Sarah Sanchez. I mean, she's a comedian, and so she's on Joe Rogan talking about being invited to do a comedy tour in Arizona, and then invited by the Rothschilds. Awesome. The Rothschilds invited her to do this tour, but then she has to go into this pyramid to put her foot in the middle and swear an oath, a bloody. I don't know.
It's a certificate thing, and it's kind of like I don't know what the word is. Like it's like a novelty kind of.
Everyone wants to get in on it. It sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that was a real contract per se, but I like the way she talks about it.
Here's videos from fMRIs. They're actually this is recording from your brain.
No, I haven't finished that yet. I'm trying to say that at the end they said that the Rothschild said the lady Rothschild said that this is the center of the world.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So I'm like, what are they talking about?
So
Arizona?
There's a thing about that. What's his name? Ripley, believe it or not, he has a whole thing about the center of the world being in Arizona. We'll have to look into that.
Ripley?
Ripley, believe it or not, center of the universe, Arizona.
Phoenix.
Maybe it's Tucson.
Yeah, it's not just the center of the world. It's like the center of the universe is in Arizona. So that's cool.
Center of the Turtle Island.
But so here's footage on the right recreated from an fMRI on the left. So they're actually they're getting so close to creating footage. They used to be able to get a lot of the data and interpret it, but now they're able to use that to feed into AI and say, okay, well, what were you looking at? It must be a fish, or it must be a bunch of people. So they can read your mind now. This is pretty close to reading your mind, I'm
almost positive that that phones are already reading my mind. Sometimes it's too uncanny. It makes too much sense that I don't know how.
This will be a big part of television in the next year. I think we're going to start seeing media that's made from input that you put into it, and very soon you'll have access to. You've seen the television, the free TV. free TV with ads.
You know what's gonna be crazy is like right now people
Minority.
watch Twitch, right? They'll watch somebody else play a video game, but in their future you might watch someone else watching TV. So they're watching the real programming, but you're watching like the amalgamation of what they're seeing.
AI is
through
watching us.
So it'll just be like this big, turtles
it's,
all
it's
the
a
way
feedback
down.
loop. It's a micro
Yeah.
feedback.
AI
loop.
is watching us. Oh, that's
You're like,
totally
yo, you
what's happening.
tuning in to Eddie tonight? I heard he's watching, Eyes Wide Shut again.
But so Telly now you can get a free TV if they can spy on you, record you all the time, and have motion sensors. And there's a bar that has Pizza Hut ads all the time too underneath it. So as long as you want a free TV, go to Telly, and they'll just spy on you all the time, and that'll become the shape of things to come. The last one I want to say, Warren Buffett just sold his entire stake in TSMC, so that's all she wrote. So get your grandpa, get your dad, get them out of Taiwan, and let's get them over here where they're safe, probably.
Yeah, I was talking to my dad last night, and I said there's a war situation, and he just started laughing. What are you talking about? I'm like, you don't know you're surrounded right now.
What the hell?
Did the missiles flying already?
Are you wait a minute? Are you saying your dad's in Taiwan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My parents live in
Oh
Taiwan.
wow, okay.
Yeah, my
Oh,
brother's
shit.
taking care of my mom right now. She's dementia.
Oh, far out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine that all that issue kind of hits home on a whole other
I
level.
might have to bring them to my little house here
Wow.
when shit hit the fan.
Right. Well, okay. I think we did pretty good. Kent, is there anything you want to share? I feel bad because I didn't like push you harder to be like, I know you have a lot of stuff.
You're all good, man. I just enjoy kind of popping on. I thank you for having me again.
You had a lot of good points to bring up actually along the way. There's some interesting things there. I'm glad you were here. We'll do it again. Thank you, man.
Oh,
Is there anything you want me to like a link I can share for people?
I have a YouTube and an Instagram that I just kind of like do re-uploads and then post worthwhile stuff that I find. And other than that, I just play classical guitar, and you can find that.
Guys, go to Kent Woods on
Kent
YouTube,
Woods.
like and subscribe. He's been a part of the Tartary Nova and recent Tartarians community for ever. So, and he got some music right here, which is pretty sweet. Check this out. How based is this? This is pretty based, I gotta
We're
admit.
stepping up the quality progressively.
Yeah, I'm gonna be listening to that on my YouTube music. That's gonna be the thing to do. So make sure you subscribe to Kent Woods. He's a bass man. Also go to Crypto Kubrology on the Twitter. That's how you can get to Alex's work. He's got so much. I don't know. He's got 237,000 million different kinds of tweets, probably.
Real quick, I want to talk about this most recent one at the very top, that because it was kind of a prediction I made in a way, or a forecast when it was May 19th, Putin's K Day, which is how old Kubrick was when he died. It's kind of like a constant. And there, of course, Putin and Trump are separated by 2,307 days. So I added that in there. So I was just like looking forward to May 19th, what was going to happen. And at the time, as usually, like the day goes by and whatever happens doesn't pop out, I think. But then I look back on it and it's completely obvious, which is that, this British author, Martin Amis, died suddenly, but on the same day that the movie based on his book was premiering at Cannes. His movie is called The Zone of Interest, and it's directed by Jonathan Glazer, who did Under the Skin, which is a really like Kubrickian sci-fi movie. And so, all right, what I'm saying here is that this seems kind of suspicious. This movie's like it's all about the Holocaust and Auschwitz. It's kind of like a horror movie that's set outside the walls of Auschwitz as the genocide is occurring. The commander of Auschwitz family is just sunbathing and having a good old time. So it's this weird thing. So I don't know, this whole confluence of events with the author suddenly passing away the day that this comes out, combined with the fact that the guy was born on the 237th day of the year, Martin Amis, and this was Putin and K Day and all that, seems like ritualistic to me.
What was the connection Under the Skin there? You said it.
The director of Under the Skin directed. This is his next film. It took like 10 years between films, and so The Zone of Interest is his next film.
There was an internal sync that just happened, because right before you said that, I'm sorry, I was thinking ahead for if I have to go to my sync films, and then I haven't put a new film up, so I was like, oh, if I was to recommend a film. And the first one that came into my head was Under the Skin and Ex Machina, with Leonard Cohen's New Skin for the Old Ceremony. So I was going to recommend that, but then I thought that, and then you said Under the Skin. I was like, wow, that's pretty specific. So just so you know, if you start Under the Skin and Ex Machina on the exact same frame when the movie starts, you just line up the bars, you know.
How far down do you find it here, you think?
What's that?
How far down is it here?
Oh, sure. You keep scrolling. I'll say what. Oh, there it is. Yeah,
Right there.
X-Men. Yeah. So basically, those two films will actually cut to black for credits at the exact same frame. And so there's 24 frames per second. However many seconds are in these movies, like, you know, like movies are generally like what, an hour and a half, 2 hours or whatever. But it just so happens that that these movies are that way, and I it's not like that's why I paired them. Like, I paired them for symbolic purposes, because one's dealing with an organism, the other one's dealing with technology. The technology ends up getting freed at the end in Ex Machina, whereas the organism gets sacrificed, it gets burnt. And so there's really kind of like uncanny symbolism there. So I don't know, it's just because we were talking about AI or whatever, I just wanted to recommend this sync. But then yeah, I'm thinking Under the Skin, and you say segue. Under the Skin. Yeah,
Perfect
there you go.
segue. Yeah, Jonathan Glazer, in my opinion, is like the closest thing. When people say, "Oh, the next Kubrick," or the son of Kubrick, I was like, I think that guy might be.
Yeah, I kind of have that with Jordan Peele, and
yeah, he's another contender. He's the
I mean, us predicts COVID-19 as far as I'm concerned, like directly. So
make sure you also check out Synchronis's work, because you've got Eddie's Facebook group, and he's back on Facebook right now. I don't think they banned him recently, so that's good.
Oh. The funny thing, Jonathan Glazer has my boy's birthday, so that's a sync right there.
That's cool.
Anyways, same year too? No.
No. Yeah, so yeah, join the group and on Facebook, and would like to have more people chime in. And but I was just fresh out of a 6-day ban, so yeah, just come join and contribute and get involved.
Yeah, and definitely follow Synchronous on Twitter, because he's posting all the time, and they're pretty great. And make sure you go to Paranoid American, the greatest comic book publisher and creator in the world. He's got the American Cryptids coloring book. He's got the MK Ultra pamphlet. He's got the Chosen One. And of course, if you're really cool, you'll want to go to the very top where you can, before we do that, shop. You also can pick his, he's got clothing right there, which is really sweet.
I got it on here now, the McDrenachrome
McDrenachrome. You know you need it. You got to get it.
I also want to throw out NASAcomic.com, which will bring you right to the Kickstarter. It's almost at 70 people. We could probably get one person here to get us from 69 to 70. But I got NASAcomic.com that'll bring you to the Stanley Kubrick comic book that I've been working on for more years than I want to admit.
Hey guys, www.nasacomic.com. Never a straight answer. This is going to be so good. 69. So yeah, notify at launch for both of these products. Let's get you guys going for the NASA comic, but also for Chosen One issue 2. Let's get it there, guys. Let's make sure this comic comes out. I want to see it. I want to read it. Sweet. All right, and also, if you haven't already seen it, check out my AI-generated Mario movie, because even though it is Super Mario 64, I'm going to get some AI-generated art on top of it. In the meantime, though, the story, come on, it's brutal. And, like, the love ballad from the Song of Solomon that is Peach's love for Koopa, and just, I mean, the Italian accent of Mario, I liked it. I'm just saying. All right, I love you all. See you soon. Take care. Good to have you. Peace.
See you later.
Peace, y'all.
follow your dreams.